My name is Al Mercer, and at 68 years old, I thought I had seen the worst of humanity, but nothing prepares a father to see his own child holding a blueprint for his murder. It was 2 a.m., and I was in the back office of my toy shop, carefully adjusting the spring mechanism on a vintage wooden carousel. The smell of sawdust and soldering flux usually calms me, but tonight the silence of the Chicago streets felt heavy like the air before a thunderstorm. My phone buzzed on the workbench, vibrating against a stray screwdriver. It was Tasha, my assistant, and the only person in this world who knows who I really am. Her voice was trembling so hard I could barely understand her. "Mr. Mercer, do not leave the safe room," she whispered. "Your daughter is in the basement hallway and she has a blowtorch." I froze. My fingers hovered over the screen of my phone. I opened the security app connected to the hidden cameras I had installed 3 decades ago. The black and white feed flickered to life and my heart stopped. There they were. Jasmine, the girl I used to carry on my shoulders to see the parades downtown, was standing in the dim light holding an architectural diagram of my building. Beside her was Liam, my son-in-law, the man who smiled at Sunday dinners while looking at my furniture with disgust. Liam was kneeling in front of the heavy steel door that leads to my basement. He wasn't knocking. He was carefully taping a small brick of C4 explosive near the hinges. His voice came through the microphone, crisp and cold. "Blow this rat hole wide open," he sneered, his face illuminated by the harsh light of the blowtorch. "The old man hides his family gold in there." We get the gold, then we help Al go meet his wife Coretta a little earlier than planned. I stood there in the darkness of my workshop, paralyzed not by fear but by a sudden chilling clarity. My hands did not shake. They were steady, the hands of a man who has spent 40 years building machines more complex than the human heart. Tonight, I was no longer a father. I was a hunter. Before I tell you what I did to that door and how I made them pay, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. It helps me know who stands with justice. I watched the screen. Liam was sweating, his blonde hair plastered to his forehead. He looked manic. Jasmine was biting her lip, looking up at the ceiling towards where she thought I was sleeping. She looked scared, but she didn't stop him. She didn't say no. She was complicit. I could have called the police. I could have pressed the panic button that summons a private security team in 3 minutes. But as I watched Liam stick the detonator into the plastic explosive, I realized that prison was too good for them. If the police came now, they would claim it was a misunderstanding, or worse, they would get a lawyer and be out on bail by morning. No. I needed to teach them a lesson that the law could not. I tapped the screen of my phone, accessing the building management system I had coded myself. Most people look at my shop and see a dusty relic filled with handmade toys. They see me, an old black man in a cardigan moving slow, and they assume I am living check to check. They do not know that underneath the floorboards runs a fiber optic network worth millions. I located the control for the basement sector. Liam was checking his watch. "Ready, babe," he whispered to Jasmine. "Cover your ears. This is going to be loud." I didn't let him have the satisfaction. My thumb hovered over a red icon labeled Silent Lockdown. I pressed it. Down in the hallway there was no siren. There were no flashing lights. The only sound was the deep hydraulic hiss of magnetic locks engaging inside the door frame. I had built that door 20 years ago. To the naked eye it looked like a standard rusty iron security door common in this part of Chicago. But underneath the rust paint was 3 inches of aerospace-grade titanium alloy salvage from a project I worked on in the 90s. I didn't build it to hide gold bars like Liam thought. I built it to protect my life's work. Liam backed away, holding a small remote detonator. "Do it," Jasmine whispered. Liam pressed the button. On my screen I saw the flash, a bright white pop that filled the narrow hallway with smoke. The camera shook, but the feed didn't cut. When the smoke cleared, the door was still standing. It hadn't even budged. The blast, which should have ripped the hinges off, was absorbed by the honeycomb structure I had designed to withstand industrial pressure. Liam coughed, waving the smoke away. He ran to the door, kicking it with his expensive Italian boot. "What the hell?" he screamed. "That was military-grade stuff. That door should be scrap metal." He grabbed the handle and yanked it. Locked, solid as a mountain. The blast had only triggered the secondary thermal seals, fusing the frame to the wall. He could hit it with a tank now, and it wouldn't open. I watched him lose his composure. He picked up a crowbar and started smashing the keypad on the wall, screaming obscenities. He called me names, words that men like him usually only say when they think no one is listening. He called me a senile old fool. He called my home a ghetto dumpster. Jasmine was crying now, but not out of guilt. She was crying because the easy payday was gone. "Liam, stop," she hissed, pulling at his arm. "You are going to wake him up. If he comes down here and sees the explosives, we are in trouble." Liam threw the crowbar down. The noise clanged through the audio feed. "He won't wake up," he spat. "The old man is deaf and half stupid. He probably thinks it's thunder." He paced the small hallway like a caged animal. I zoomed the camera in on his face. I could see the veins in his neck bulging. I could see the desperation. That was when I remembered the rumors Tasha had told me. Rumors that Liam was in deep with loan sharks, that he needed $500,000 by the end of the month or he was a dead man. That explained the C4. That explained the rush. He turned to Jasmine, his eyes wild. "We can't get in tonight. This door is a fortress." "So what do we do?" Jasmine asked. "We can't just leave. We need that money, Liam." Liam looked up at the ceiling again, staring right into the hidden camera lens without knowing it. A cruel smile spread across his face. It was the smile of a predator who has found a wounded animal. "We don't leave," he said, his voice dropping to a sinister whisper. "If we can't break in, we move in." "Move in?" Jasmine asked, confused. "We tell him we got evicted," Liam said. "A plumbing disaster, a gas leak, whatever. We ask for a place to stay for a few days. We get inside the house. We live with him. We gain his trust. We find the physical key. And if he says no," Jasmine asked, "he won't say no." Liam laughed. "He is a lonely, pathetic old man who thinks the sun shines out of your face. But if he does hesitate, we make his life hell. We take over his space, we eat his food, we stress him out until his heart gives out or he forgets to lock the door. We stay until we get what is in that basement." I felt a coldness spread through my chest. They were not just thieves. They were parasites. They planned to invade my sanctuary, eat at my table, and wait for me to die. I looked at the time, 2:15 a.m. They would be coming upstairs soon to leave the building so they could return in the morning with their sob story. I had to be in bed. I had to look like the oblivious grandfather they thought I was. I switched off the monitor and picked up my cane. I don't really need the cane, not all the time. I still practice judo 3 mornings a week in the back of the warehouse. But the cane is part of the costume. It makes people hold doors for me. It makes them talk louder and slower. It makes them underestimate me. I walked quickly from the back office to the stairs that led to my apartment on the 2nd floor. My heart was pounding, but my mind was calculating. They wanted to play a game. They wanted to invade my home. "Fine," I whispered to the empty shop as I locked the office door. "Come in, children. Come into the spider's web." I climbed the stairs, listening to the faint sounds of them scrambling to clean up the debris in the basement hallway. I changed into my pajamas and got under the quilt Coretta had sewn for us 40 years ago. I lay there in the dark, slowing my breathing, waiting. I thought about the basement. They thought it was full of gold bars, ancient family heirlooms, maybe cash stuffed in mattresses. It was the kind of stereotype small minds create. They could not conceive that a black man from this neighborhood could build something of value that wasn't just physical wealth. They didn't know that behind that titanium door was a clean room, a server farm, prototype robotics that were 5 years ahead of anything Silicon Valley was producing. They didn't know that I held patents that were currently licensing technology to 3 major automotive companies. They didn't know that the gold they were looking for was intellectual property worth more than they could count in 10 lifetimes. I heard the front door of the shop creak open downstairs. They must have picked the lock to get in originally. Liam was good with his hands, I had to give him that. A criminal talent wasted. I heard their footsteps on the sidewalk retreating. They were gone. For now. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan. I knew that when the sun rose, my life as a quiet, retired shopkeeper would be over. Tomorrow morning, they would come back with their suitcases and their lies. They would try to break me. I closed my eyes, and I saw Coretta's face. She always told me I was too soft on Jasmine. She told me that giving her everything she wanted would make her weak. I didn't listen. I wanted my little girl to have the world. Now the world had chewed her up and spit out a woman who would stand by while her husband planted a bomb on her father's door. I felt a tear slide down my cheek into the pillow. It was the last tear I would shed for them. When the sun came up, I would brew a pot of coffee. I would sit in my armchair, and I would wait for the knock on the door. I would welcome them in. I would let them think they had won. because the closer they were, the easier it would be to destroy them. They wanted to know what was in the basement. I decided right then and there that eventually I would show them. But they were not going to like what they found. The night dragged on. I rehearsed my lines. I practiced my tremors. I prepared to be the frail old man. I was Al Mercer, the toy maker, and tomorrow the game would begin. The morning sun filtered through the dusty blinds of my apartment, painting stripes of light across the worn wooden floorboards. It was 7 a.m., and the city of Chicago was waking up outside my window, but inside I was already performing my role. I sat in my favorite armchair, a cup of black coffee in my trembling hand, staring at the front door. I knew they were coming. The cameras had shown them circling the block in their leased Range Rover, waiting for a respectable hour to launch their invasion. I took a sip of the bitter coffee and let the warmth settle in my stomach. It was the only warmth I would feel today. I had unlocked the deadbolt 10 minutes ago. I wanted to make it easy for them. I wanted no barriers between the spider and the fly. Then it happened. The heavy footsteps on the stairs, the hushed arguments. And finally the door handle turning. They didn't even knock. Jasmine burst into the room first, dragging 2 massive designer suitcases that looked ridiculous in my modest living room. Her face was a mask of calculated distress. Mascara was smeared artistically under her eyes, and she was wearing pajamas under a trench coat. It was a performance worthy of daytime television. "Daddy!" she wailed, dropping the bags with a heavy thud that shook the floor. "Oh, Daddy, it is terrible." Liam followed her in, closing the door with his foot. He was carrying a garment bag and a look of supreme annoyance. He scanned the room, his blue eyes darting from my old television to the stack of books on the side table. He didn't look like a man seeking refuge. He looked like a health inspector visiting a slaughterhouse. "What is going on?" I asked, making my voice quaver. My hand shook just enough to spill a few drops of coffee onto my saucer. "Why are you here so early? Is everything all right?" "It is a disaster," Al Liam said, stepping over a pile of Jasmine's bags. "Our landlord, he is a criminal. The pipes burst in the penthouse. There is water everywhere. Black mold. The city condemned the unit this morning at 4 a.m. We had nowhere else to go. He lied with the ease of a politician. I knew for a fact they had been evicted for non-payment 3 days ago. Tasha had sent me the court documents, but I widened my eyes behind my thick glasses and gasped. "Oh my heavens," I said, gripping the armrests of my chair. "That sounds dangerous. Are you two safe?" "Did you call the insurance company?" "They denied the claim," Jasmine sobbed, rushing over to kneel by my chair. She grabbed my hand. Her palms were sweaty. "We have lost everything, Daddy. We just need a place to stay for a few days. Just until Liam gets his big settlement from the tech merger." I looked at Liam. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the hallway that led to the kitchen and the back stairs. The stairs that led down to the shop and the basement. His eyes were hungry. "Of course," I said, patting Jasmine's head. "You are family. This is your home. You can stay as long as you need." Liam turned his head and gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thanks, Al. You are a lifesaver. We won't be in your way." He didn't wait for my permission to move. He picked up his bags and marched towards the spare bedroom, kicking my dog's water bowl out of the way as he passed. Water splashed onto the hardwood. He didn't even look down. I watched him go. The invasion had begun. They thought they had tricked a senile old man. They didn't know I had unlocked the door for them. By 9 a.m., the atmosphere in my sanctuary had shifted from peaceful to suffocating. Liam had not just moved in, he had taken over. He emerged from the spare room wearing a silk robe that cost more than my car. He walked into the living room where I was listening to my morning jazz record. It was a rare pressing of John Coltrane, A Love Supreme. It was one of the few things I had left from Coretta. She used to hum along to the saxophone while she cooked. Liam stood in front of the television, blocking my view of the window. He looked around the room with a sneer curling his lip. "God, Al," he said loud enough to ensure I heard him. "How do you live like this? It smells like mothballs and failure in here." He flopped down onto my leather sofa, the one I had restored by hand 10 years ago. He put his bare feet up on the coffee table, pushing aside the coasters I had placed there. "I need space," he announced. "Jasmine, bring me my laptop. I have to make some calls. This environment is stifling my creativity." He looked down at the floor near the record player. My collection of vinyls was stacked neatly in milk crates organized by year and artist. They were my pride and joy. Liam reached down and shoved a crate with his foot. "Move this junk," he barked. "I need legroom." The crate tipped over. Records slid out across the floor. The sleeves were old and fragile. I heard the sickening crack of vinyl hitting wood. "Careful, son," I said, standing up slowly, leaning heavily on my cane. "Those are very old. They belong to my wife." Liam didn't apologize. He didn't even look up. He just kicked the records further away, clearing a space for his feet. "They are trash, Al," he said dismissively. "Nobody listens to this noise anymore. It is depressing. Just like this neighborhood. Seriously, why don't you sell this dump? You could move into a nice facility, somewhere they change your sheets for you." I felt a surge of rage, so hot it almost burned through my facade. He was talking about the music of my people, the history of my soul, as if it were garbage. He was talking about the home I built with my bare hands as if it were a prison cell. I wanted to drop the cane. I wanted to walk over there and use the judo throw I had perfected in 1985 to put him through the coffee table. I wanted to twist his arm until he screamed an apology to Coretta's memory. But I did nothing. I bent down my joints, creaking loudly, and began to pick up the records one by one. I acted like the beaten dog he thought I was. "I am sorry, Liam," I mumbled. "I will move them. I didn't mean to be in your way." "Good," Liam grunted, opening his laptop. "And open a window. It smells like poor people in here." I gathered the records, clutching them to my chest. I retreated to the kitchen, my heart pounding a rhythm of pure hatred. He had violated my space, my memories, and my dignity in less than 2 hours, but I had to be patient. The trap was set, but the prey had to get comfortable first. As I placed the records on the kitchen counter, I noticed Liam had left his leather messenger bag on the dining table. It was unzipped. A thick envelope was sticking out of the main pocket. It was red. I glanced at the living room. Liam was shouting at Jasmine about finding his charger. He wasn't paying attention to me. I was just part of the furniture to him. I walked over to the table, shuffling my feet. I pretended to wipe a crumb off the surface. My hand brushed the envelope. I slid it out just an inch. It was a final notice. But it wasn't from a bank or a utility company. It was handwritten on heavy cardstock, the kind used for wedding invitations, but the message was far from celebratory. The header read, "Vinny the Shark Enterprises." It was a joke name for a very serious organization. I knew Vinny. Everyone in Chicago who worked in the shadows knew Vinny. He was a loan shark who didn't use lawyers to collect debts. He used baseball bats. I read the numbers quickly. Current balance $500,000. Due date 30 days. Message: "We know where your wife shops. Pay up or we start sending pieces of her back to you." I slid the letter back into the bag. My heart was racing, but my mind was cold and clear. So that was it. It wasn't just greed. It was survival. Liam wasn't just a spoiled brat trying to get rich quick. He was a desperate man with a death sentence hanging over his head. $500,000. That explained the explosives. That explained the rush. That explained why he was so aggressive. He was a cornered rat. And cornered rats bite. This changed everything. A greedy man might give up if the door is too hard to open. A desperate man will burn the house down to get what is inside. I had to be careful. I wasn't just dealing with a thief. I was dealing with a man who had nothing left to lose. I heard Liam's heavy footsteps approaching the kitchen. I quickly grabbed a rag and started scrubbing a spot on the counter, humming a shapeless tune. "What is for breakfast?" Liam demanded, standing in the doorway. "I am starving, and don't make me any of that greasy stuff you eat. I want egg whites and avocado." I turned around, giving him my best confused smile. "I think I have some eggs, son," I said. "I will do my best." He scoffed and walked away, muttering about incompetent staff. I made him his eggs. I put them on a plate. And as I stared at his back while he ate at my table, I formulated the next step of my plan. He needed money. He needed it fast. I would use that need against him. When breakfast was over, I cleared the plates. Liam was picking his teeth, staring at his phone. Jasmine was in the bedroom, unpacking or hiding, I wasn't sure. "Liam," I said softly. He looked up, annoyed. "What?" "You and Jasmine can stay here," I said. "I know you are in a tough spot." "Yeah, thanks," Liam said, turning back to his phone. "But there is one rule," I continued, my voice dropping an octave. He paused. "A rule?" "Yes," I said. I pointed a shaking finger toward the door that led to the back stairs, the stairs that went down to the shop and the basement. "You must never go down to the basement," I said. Liam slowly lowered his phone. He turned in his chair to face me. A spark of interest lit up his eyes. "Why?" he asked. "What is down there, Al?" "It is dangerous," I said, lowering my eyes. There is mold, structural damage, the air is bad, and I keep my private things there. Coretta's things. It is not safe for you. I saw the gears turning in his head. He didn't hear danger. He heard treasure. He heard secrets. He heard the solution to his $500,000 problem. Sure, Al, he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. No basement. Got it. We will stay upstairs. You have my word. He turned back to his laptop, but not before I saw it. The smirk. It was the look of a man who had just been given a map to the buried treasure. I shuffled away toward my bedroom, leaning on my cane. Okay then, I said. I am going to take a nap. Old bones get tired. I closed my bedroom door and leaned against it. I didn't need a nap. I needed to check the monitors. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. The hidden camera in the living room showed Liam the moment I was gone. He was already on his feet. He was walking toward the door to the back stairs. He tried the handle. It was locked. He pulled a set of lockpicks from his pocket. I watched him work. He was good. Fast. But he didn't know that the lock on that door was a decoy. He didn't know that opening it would trigger a silent alert to Tasha. And he definitely didn't know that the basement he was so desperate to enter was just the waiting room for the real show. He wanted in. I would let him in. But not yet. Let him sweat. Let him think he was being clever. I sat on the edge of my bed and waited. The game of cat and mouse had officially begun, and the mouse had just taken the first piece of cheese. The coffee tasted like betrayal. That was the first thought that crossed my mind when Liam handed me the mug the next morning. He was smiling that same tight expression that showed too many teeth and didn't reach his eyes. Here you go, Al, he said, his voice dripping with a sickly sweetness that made my skin crawl. I made it special for you. A little cinnamon to help those old bones wake up. I took the mug. It was my favorite ceramic cup, the one Coretta had bought me on our 30th anniversary. Seeing his manicured fingers wrapped around the handle felt like a violation. I nodded my thanks, playing the part of the grateful geriatric invalid. Liam stood there watching me. He didn't move. He was waiting for me to drink it. His anticipation was palpable, a vibration in the air that set my instincts on fire. I lifted the cup to my lips. The steam hit my face, carrying the familiar aroma of roasted beans, but underneath the coffee and the heavy scent of cinnamon there was something else. A chemical tang. Sharp, metallic. It was faint, but to a man who has spent 40 years working with solvents and chemical compounds, it was as loud as a siren. I took a sip, but I did not swallow. I let the liquid sit on my tongue. It burned slightly in a way coffee never should. It is delicious, son, I lied, lowering the cup. But it is too hot. I will let it cool for a minute. Liam's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Don't let it get cold, Al, he urged. It is best when it is fresh. I waited until he turned his back to open the refrigerator. In one smooth motion, I practiced 100 times in the mirror. I spit the mouthful of coffee into the dark cloth napkin on my lap. I folded the napkin quickly, stuffing it into my pocket. When Liam turned back, I made a show of wiping my mouth and sighing with satisfaction. That hit the spot, I said. I waited until he went into the living room to argue with someone on his phone. Then I walked to the window where Coretta's favorite peace lily sat in a large clay pot. It was a resilient plant, green and vibrant despite my neglect since she passed. Forgive me, old friend, I whispered. I poured the entire contents of the mug into the soil near the roots. The dark liquid soaked in, instantly disappearing. I placed the empty mug in the sink and went to my room, locking the door. The next morning I went straight to the window. The peace lily was dead. It wasn't just wilting. It was gray and shriveled as if the life had been sucked out of it violently. The leaves were brittle, crumbling at my touch. Whatever Liam had put in that cup was not just a sedative. It was poison. He wasn't trying to put me to sleep. He was trying to stop my heart. Rage is a cold thing when you get to my age. It doesn't burn hot and fast. It settles in your bones like winter frost. I looked at the dead plant and I made a silent vow. He wanted to play chemist. I would show him what happens when you mix the wrong elements. Around noon there was a knock at the door. A loud, authoritative rapping that made Liam jump. He was on the sofa again, feet up, watching daytime television while Jasmine painted her nails. "Who is that?" Liam barked. "We aren't expecting anyone." I shuffled out of my room, leaning heavily on my cane. "Probably a delivery," I said. I ordered some parts for the shop. Liam scrambled up. "Sit down, Al," he commanded. "I will handle it. I don't want you opening the door to strangers." He marched to the door and yanked it open. A delivery driver stood there, cap pulled low, holding a grease-stained cardboard box. It was Tasha, my assistant. She had worn her brother's old mechanic uniform and rubbed oil on her cheek to obscure her features. "Package for Mr. Mercer," she mumbled, chewing gum loudly. "Sign here." Liam tried to grab the box. "I will take it," he said. "Sign here," Tasha repeated, pointing at the clipboard. "Only Mr. Mercer. Company policy. High-value items." Liam scoffed. "High value. It is probably junk. Al, get over here." I walked over, my hand shaking as I took the pen. Tasha didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on the clipboard, but as I signed, she tapped her index finger twice on the box. It was our signal. Urgent intelligence. I took the box. It felt heavy. "What is in there?" Liam asked, eyeing it suspiciously. "Just some old gears," I said. "For the carousel." I took the box to my room while Liam went back to the sofa, complaining about the interruption. Once the door was locked, I opened the box with a precision knife. Inside, nestled between rusted gears and packing peanuts, was a thick manila envelope. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened it. Tasha had outdone herself. The dossier was comprehensive. It contained printed screenshots of emails, bank transfers, and surveillance photos. The first photo showed Liam in a parking lot exchanging cash with a man in a white lab coat. Tasha had identified him. Dr. Eris Thorne. He wasn't a real doctor anymore. He had lost his license 5 years ago for writing illegal prescriptions, but he still operated out of a basement clinic in the South Side, selling medical certificates to the highest bidder. I read the emails Tasha had intercepted. Subject: problem resolution. From Liam to Dr. Thorne. The old man is tough. The initial dose didn't seem to affect him. I need something stronger. Also, I need that certificate ready by Friday. Rapid onset dementia. He needs to be declared incompetent so I can take power of attorney. He is forgetting things already. Let us make it official. Attached to the email was a receipt for a bulk order of haloperidol, a powerful antipsychotic often used to sedate violent patients. In high doses on an elderly man, it would mimic the symptoms of a stroke or severe dementia. It would turn me into a vegetable, drooling and confused, perfectly compliant for a judge to sign my life away. My hands tightened on the papers. They weren't just going to kill me. They were going to erase me first. They were going to take my mind, my dignity, and my autonomy. They wanted to turn Al Mercer, the genius engineer, into Al Mercer, the senile burden. I looked at the next document. It was a draft of a medical evaluation. Patient exhibits severe cognitive decline, aggression, and inability to care for self. Immediate custodial care recommended. It was already signed by Dr. Thorne. They just needed to drug me enough to make me match the description when the notary came. I put the papers down. I closed my eyes and let the memories wash over me. This wasn't the first time a white man had tried to steal my mind. I was 24 years old, working as a junior draftsman at a large engineering firm downtown. I had spent 6 months of my nights and weekends designing a new hydraulic valve system. It was elegant. It was efficient. It solved a problem the senior engineers had been stuck on for years. I brought the blueprints to my supervisor, a man named Henderson. He looked a lot like Liam. The same expensive suit, the same arrogant jawline. He looked at my drawings for a long time, then he looked at me. "This is good, Al," he said. "Really good. But you know we can't put your name on this." "Why not?" I had asked, naive and hopeful, because he said, leaning back in his chair with a pitying smile, "The client won't buy it. They see a name like Alphonse Mercer, and they think maintenance staff, not innovation. They think affirmative action, not genius. We have to be realistic. People like you are good with your hands, but the high-level math, it is just not in your nature." He took my drawings. He put his name on the patent. He got a promotion. I got a pat on the back and a small bonus that barely covered my rent. I quit the next day. I vowed then that I would never again let someone tell me what I was capable of. I built my empire in the shadows because the light was too full of people like Henderson. People who thought my skin color was a limit on my intelligence. Now here was Liam 40 years later making the same mistake. He looked at me and he saw a feeble old black man. He saw a victim. He didn't see the engineer. He didn't see the man who could build a machine to crush him. He wanted to use science against me. He wanted to use medicine as a weapon. He forgot one thing. I know how things work. I know how to take them apart, and I know how to reassemble them into a trap. I stood up and walked to my private bathroom. I opened the medicine cabinet. There it was, my daily bottle of blood pressure medication. But the pills inside looked slightly different. The shade of blue was a fraction lighter. Liam had already made the switch. I took the bottle. I walked to my workshop bench in the corner of the room, which I kept hidden behind a folding screen. I pulled out a small mortar and pestle and a bag of sugar and food coloring I used for making candy molds for the neighborhood kids. It took me an hour to manufacture the replacements. I crushed the poison pills into a fine powder and flushed them down the toilet. Then I mixed the sugar and dye, pressing them into the same shape and size. They were perfect replicas. I put the fake pills back in the bottle. It was time for the performance of a lifetime. I checked my reflection in the mirror. I let my shoulders slump. I relaxed my facial muscles until my mouth hung slightly open. I let a dull vacancy enter my eyes. I opened the bedroom door and shuffled into the living room. Liam was on a call, pacing back and forth. Jasmine was flipping through a magazine. I stood in the center of the room and let my hand start to tremor. I shook it violently until it hit my side. I dropped my cane. It clattered loudly on the floor. Liam spun around, annoyed. "What now, Al?" I looked at him, blinking slowly. I looked at the lamp. I looked at the wall. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice raspy and weak. "Where is Coretta? She said she was going to the store." Liam froze. He lowered the phone. A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. He looked at Jasmine. "It is happening," he whispered. "The medicine is working." He walked over to me, stepping into my personal space. "Coretta is gone." "Al," he said, his voice loud and slow, like he was talking to a child. "Do you remember? You are confused." I let out a whimper and clutched my head. My head. I moaned. "It is foggy. So much fog." Liam patted my shoulder. His touch was victorious. "Don't worry, Al," he said. "We are going to take care of you. You just relax. Let us handle everything." He guided me to the chair. I sat down, letting my body go limp. I stared blankly at the unlit television screen. Behind me, I heard Liam whisper to Jasmine, "Call the lawyer. Tell him to bring the papers tomorrow. He is ready." I sat there staring at nothing while inside my mind was sharp as a diamond. He thought I was breaking. He thought the drugs had won. He didn't know that the only thing I was high on was the absolute certainty of his destruction. Come tomorrow, he would bring his papers, and I would bring my own surprise. The suit smelled like mothballs and humiliation. It was a powder blue polyester monstrosity I had bought for a cousin's wedding in 1982. I had kept it in the back of the closet, wrapped in plastic, as a reminder of a time when I had to dress up to be taken seriously. Now Liam was holding it out to me, his face twisted in a mocking grin. "Put it on, Al," he demanded. "We have guests coming, important people, investors. You want to look sharp, don't you? You want to look like the lord of the manor." He laughed, and Jasmine giggled from the doorway. She was wearing a cocktail dress that cost more than my delivery van. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I took the suit. My hands trembled, not from age, but from the sheer effort of not wrapping the hanger around Liam's neck. I played my part. I nodded slowly, my mouth hanging open slightly, the way Dr. Thorne said a dementia patient would look. "Sure, son," I rasped. "I want to look nice." I changed in the bathroom. The fabric was itchy and tight across the shoulders. I looked like a caricature of a man, a clown. When I walked out into the living room, Liam actually clapped. "Look at that," he shouted to the empty room. "Vintage chic. You look like $1 million, Al. Or at least like $20. The doorbell rang. The invasion began. These were not friends. I knew that the moment they stepped through the door. They were men in suits that were too shiny, wearing watches that were too big. They smelled of expensive cologne and desperation. They were the kind of men who lend money at 40% interest and break kneecaps when the payment is late. These were the sharks Liam was swimming with. He introduced me as his father-in-law, the eccentric owner. They looked at me with dead eyes. They saw the old suit, the cane, the shaking hands, and they dismissed me instantly. I was furniture. I was a prop in Liam's grand delusion of wealth. Liam played the host, pouring cheap champagne into my crystal glasses, spilling it on the floor without caring. He turned up the music, a thumping bass-heavy beat that rattled the windows and drowned out the sanctity of my home. I sat in my corner chair, clutching my cane, watching them. They touched everything. They picked up my books with greasy fingers. They put their wet glasses on the mahogany side table without coasters. One man, ash from his cigar falling onto my rug, looked at the walls and sneered. "Small place," he grunted to Liam. You said you had assets. I do. Liam insisted, his voice high and nervous. This is just the shell. The land alone is prime real estate. And the basement, well, let us just say there is family history here. Hard assets. He winked. The man didn't smile. He just took a drag of his cigar and blew the smoke directly into my face. I coughed, waving the smoke away. Sorry, Gramps, the man said without an ounce of apology. Liam rushed over not to defend me, but to refill the man's drink. Don't mind him, Liam said. He is in his own world. Half the time he doesn't even know what year it is. I gripped the handle of my cane. I knew exactly what year it was. It was the year Liam was going to learn that you never corner a man who built his own cages. The party grew louder as the sun went down. The living room was crowded with people who didn't belong there. The air was thick with smoke and lies. Liam was drunk. He was holding court in the center of the room, his arm draped around Jasmine's shoulders. She looked uncomfortable, but she forced a smile every time he squeezed her. Liam climbed onto my sturdy oak coffee table. He raised a bottle of vodka high in the air. Silence, everyone, he shouted. I want to make a toast. The room quieted down. 20 pairs of predatory eyes turned to him. To the future, Liam bellowed. To the future, the guests echoed. Liam looked down at me. He pointed the bottle at my chest. To this old man, he said, his voice slurring, for holding on to this place long enough for someone with vision to take over. The guests laughed. It was a cruel sound. You see this dump? Liam continued, sweeping his arm around the room. It looks like garbage, right? It smells like the past. But I see the future. He took a long swig from the bottle and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. As soon as the paperwork clears, he said, and I assure you it is clearing very fast, we are bringing in the bulldozers. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Jasmine looked down at her shoes. We are going to gut this place, Liam declared. We are going to tear down these rotting walls. We are going to rip up these creaky floors. And we are going to build a penthouse, floor-to-ceiling glass, marble countertops, a roof deck with a jacuzzi. No more dust, no more old man smell. He looked at me with pure contempt. We are going to take the Mercer legacy and finally make it worth something, he said. Because, let us be honest, Al never had the ambition to be more than a shopkeeper. He sat on a gold mine and sold wooden horses. But I am going to change that. I am going to turn this dirt into diamonds. He looked at Jasmine, expecting her to cheer. Right, baby, he asked. Jasmine looked at him, then she looked at me. I stared at her. I willed her to say something, to defend the home she grew up in, to defend the father who worked double shifts to buy her first violin. She hesitated. Then she looked at the sharks in the room. She saw the expectations in their eyes. She saw the power Liam was pretending to have. Right, Liam, she said, her voice small but clear. It will be beautiful, a fresh start. She smiled at him. It was the smile of a conspirator. The guests cheered. Liam hopped down from the table, almost losing his balance. He kissed Jasmine hard and sloppy. To the penthouse, he screamed. I sat there in my polyester suit, and I felt the last thread of hope snap. Jasmine was gone. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a volunteer. She wanted the penthouse more than she wanted her father. I watched them toast to my destruction. They were celebrating my death while I was still sitting in the room. They were already spending the money they thought I had. But they forgot one thing. To build a penthouse, you need a foundation. And the foundation of this house was mine, and I was about to pull it out from under them. The party began to fracture into smaller groups. The loud music continued, but the guests were getting bored. One of the men, a heavy-set guy with rings on every finger, wandered away from the group. He walked toward the display shelves that lined the wall near the hallway. These shelves held some of my most intricate work. To the untrained eye, they were just toys. Mechanical dolls, clockwork birds, wind-up trains. But to me, they were prototypes. The man stopped in front of a small silver robot. It was only 6 inches tall. It looked like a vintage tin toy from the 50s. But inside the casing was a gyroscopic stabilization system I had developed for a drone contract 3 years ago. The patent alone was worth $4 million. The man reached out with his greasy hand. Hey, look at this piece of junk, he shouted to his friend. He grabbed the robot roughly by its antenna. My heart hammered against my ribs. The antenna was the primary sensor array. If he bent it, the calibration would be ruined. It wasn't just a toy, it was months of work. It was a masterpiece. I forgot my role. I forgot the tremors. I forgot the dementia. No, I shouted. I stood up from the chair with a speed that surprised even me. I crossed the room in 3 strides. I snatched the robot from the man's hand before he could lift it off the shelf. I cradled it against my chest, checking the antenna. It was safe. The man stepped back, startled. "Whoa, easy there, Grandpa," he said, raising his hands. "I was just looking." The room went silent. Liam turned around. He stared at me, his eyes narrowing. "What is wrong with you, Al?" he asked, walking over. "It is just a toy. Let the man see it." "It is delicate," I said, my voice dropping back into the raspy whisper I had been using. "It is Coretta's favorite. Don't touch it." I hugged the robot tighter, pretending to be a confused old man clinging to a sentimental trinket. Liam laughed, a cruel barking sound. "You see," he said to the guests, "he is obsessed with these dolls. He thinks they are real. He talks to them sometimes." The tension in the room broke. The guests chuckled. I was just the crazy old man again. "Here," Liam said, snatching the robot from my hands. I flinched, but I let him take it. If I fought him for it, he would get suspicious. He tossed it onto the sofa like it was a piece of trash. "Relax, Al. Nobody wants your garbage," Liam said. "Go sit down before you have a heart attack." I stumbled back to my chair, my eyes fixed on the robot lying on the cushion. It was safe for now, but I realized how close I had come to blowing my cover. I had to be more careful. The party dragged on for another hour. The vodka bottle was empty. Liam was slumped on the sofa next to the robot, his tie undone, his face flushed. The guests were leaving, filtering out one by one, unimpressed by the cheap liquor in the small apartment. Liam didn't walk them out. He was too drunk. He waved his hand dismissively at the door. Yeah, get out," he mumbled. "We will talk business on Monday." Jasmine was in the kitchen trying to clean up the mess. I was alone in the living room with Liam. He closed his eyes. His breathing deepened. He was passing out. His phone was sitting on the cushion right next to his hand. It was unlocked. The screen was glowing, showing a text message thread with someone named Vinny. I looked at the kitchen. Jasmine was running the water. I looked at Liam. He let out a snore. This was it. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small black USB drive. It wasn't a standard drive. Tasha had loaded it with a cloning software we used to test the security of banking apps. I moved silently. I didn't need the cane. I leaned over Liam. The smell of cheap vodka and sweat was overpowering. I picked up his phone. My hands were steady as a surgeon's. I plugged the drive into the charging port. The screen flickered. A small green progress bar appeared. 10%. Liam shifted. He grunted something unintelligible and scratched his nose. I froze, holding my breath. 30%. I heard Jasmine turn off the faucet in the kitchen. She would be coming back in any second. 50%. "Come on," I whispered inside my mind. "Faster." Liam's eyes fluttered. He smacked his lips. 70%. I heard Jasmine's heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She was in the hallway. 90%. Done. The screen flashed green. I yanked the drive out and slid it into my pocket. I dropped the phone back onto the cushion exactly where it had been. I sat back in my chair and closed my eyes just as Jasmine walked into the room. "Is he asleep?" she asked, looking at Liam with disgust. "I think so," I mumbled, keeping my eyes closed. "Good," she said. "I am going to bed. Don't stay up too late, Dad." She walked past me without checking if I was okay. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close. Then I opened my eyes. I looked at Liam sleeping peacefully, unaware that his life was now in my pocket. I had his texts, his emails, his GPS history, his contacts. I had the keys to his destruction. I stood up and picked up the robot from the sofa. I checked the antenna one last time. It was perfect. I walked to my room. I didn't need the cane. Tonight I would listen. Tomorrow I would strike. The party was over. But the funeral was just beginning. The blue light of my computer monitor was the only illumination in my locked bedroom. It was 3 a.m., and while the parasites slept in my living room, I was awake staring into the digital soul of my son-in-law. Tasha's cloning software had done its job perfectly. Every text message, every email, every deleted photo, and every GPS location from Liam's phone was now spread out across my 3 screens like a dissected frog. I started with the financial data because numbers do not lie. It was worse than I thought. Liam wasn't just in debt to Vinny the Shark. He was drowning. He had gambling apps installed on his phone that showed losses of over $50,000 in the last month alone. He was betting on everything. Football, cricket, horse racing in Dubai. He was a man chasing a high he could never catch. But then I opened the folder labeled Archived Messages. This was where the real rot lived. I saw a thread with a contact named Vinny. The messages were brutal. Pictures of a man with broken fingers, thinly veiled threats about accidents. Liam's replies were pathetic begging for time, promising a big payday soon. He literally typed the words, "My father-in-law is on his last legs. The inheritance is guaranteed." I felt a cold tightness in my chest, but I kept scrolling. I found a thread with a contact named C. At first I thought it was a drug dealer, but the tone was intimate. Too intimate. I opened the first image. It was a selfie of Liam and a woman in bed. The woman was laughing, holding a glass of champagne. I recognized her immediately. It was Chloe, Jasmine's best friend since high school, the maid of honor at their wedding, the woman who came over for brunch every Sunday and hugged Jasmine like a sister. I read the texts. They were a transcript of pure hatred. Liam wrote, "She is so needy today. I can barely stand to look at her. She keeps talking about decorating the penthouse. As if I am going to let her live there once the old man kicks the bucket." Chloe replied, "You are terrible. Just keep her happy until the check clears, baby. We need that money for Cabo." Liam wrote, "She is a cow. A stupid, clueless cow. I have to drink half a bottle of vodka just to touch her. But it will be over soon. Once we get power of attorney, we can dump her in a facility with her dad. 2 for the price of 1. I sat back in my chair, the leather creaking in the silence. My hands were gripping the armrest so hard my knuckles ached. He didn't love her. He didn't even like her. To him, Jasmine was just a biological key, a necessary inconvenience to unlock my assets. He hated her. He mocked her intelligence, her body, her loyalty. And Jasmine. My poor, foolish Jasmine. She was out there on the sofa, probably dreaming about a life with this monster. She thought they were partners. She thought they were Bonnie and Clyde taking down the world together. She didn't know she was just the getaway driver and he was planning to shoot her the moment they crossed the county line. I felt a wave of nausea. Not for me. I could handle hate. I have been black in America for 68 years. Hate is background noise to me. But for her, she was my blood. I remembered teaching her to ride a bike on this very street. I remembered her crying when she scraped her knee and how she trusted me to fix it. I looked at the screen again. Liam had sent Chloe a video. It was taken earlier that evening during the party. It showed Jasmine cleaning up a spilled drink on her hands and knees. Liam's voice narrated from behind the camera. "Look at her. Trained well. She will make a good maid for my next wife." I closed the laptop. I couldn't watch anymore. The rage was gone, replaced by a profound, heavy sorrow. I realized then that my war wasn't just against Liam. It was a rescue mission. I had to save Jasmine not from poverty, but from the illusion that was killing her. But before I could save her, I had to know if she was worth saving. I had to know if there was anything left of my daughter inside that shell of greed and desperation. The sun rose gray and bleak over Chicago. I unlocked my door and walked out into the kitchen. The house was quiet. Liam was still passed out on the sofa, snoring with his mouth open. Jasmine was in the kitchen making coffee. She looked tired. Her makeup was from the night before, smeared under her eyes. She looked like a woman who was slowly realizing she was trapped, but didn't know how to escape. "Good morning, Jasmine," I said, my voice soft. She jumped, nearly dropping the spoon. "God, Dad, you scared me. Do not sneak up on people." "I am sorry, baby girl," I said. I shuffled over to the table and sat down. She poured herself a cup of coffee, ignoring me. She didn't offer me one. "Jasmine," I said, looking at her back, "do you remember when you were 10? We went to the lake. We fished for hours and didn't catch a thing, but we talked. You told me you wanted to be an explorer. You wanted to see the pyramids." She turned around, leaning against the counter. She rolled her eyes. "That was a long time ago, Dad. I was a kid." "I know," I said. But I was thinking, this shop, this building, it is a lot of work. Maybe too much work for an old man. Her ears perked up. She looked at me over the rim of her cup. Her eyes narrowed. "What are you saying, Dad?" "I am saying maybe you are right," I lied. "Maybe I should sell." A smile twitched at the corner of her mouth. "Really? You want to sell?" "Yes," I said. "I have been looking at prices. I could get a good amount for the land." "Cash?" Jasmine put the cup down. She walked over to the table and sat opposite me. Her attention was fully on me now. "That is great, Dad. That is really sensible. Liam knows a developer. He can handle everything for you. I raised a hand. Wait, I said. Hear me out. I don't want to give the money to Liam or to a developer. Her smile faded. Then what? I want to take the money. I said, leaning forward, my eyes searching hers. I want to buy a big RV, a nice one, and I want to drive south. I want to see the Grand Canyon. I want to see Mexico. And I want you to come with me, just you and me, like the old days. We leave Liam here, we leave the stress. We just go live. We spend the money on experiences, on joy. I watched her face, hoping to see a spark of the girl who wanted to be an explorer. I hoped to see relief at the idea of leaving her toxic husband. I hoped to see love. Instead, I saw horror. Her face twisted into a mask of pure indignation. Are you crazy? She snapped. Spend the money, on a vacation. It is my money, Jasmine, I said gently. It is my life. No, it is not, she hissed, slamming her hand on the table. That is our legacy. You can't just blow it on a road trip. You are almost 70. You are supposed to be building generational wealth. You are supposed to leave something for your children. I felt a crack in my heart widening. I gave you an education, Jasmine, I said. I gave you a debt-free start in life. I paid for your wedding. Isn't that enough? No, she screamed. It is not enough. Look at us, Dad. We are struggling. Liam is trying so hard to build an empire, and you are sitting on a gold mine talking about buying a camper. It is selfish. It is incredibly selfish. Selfish. The word hung in the air between us. I looked at the woman sitting across from me. I saw the designer clothes I paid for. I saw the jewelry I bought her. I saw a woman who had never worked a hard day in her life because I had shielded her from the rain. So you wouldn't come with me? I asked quietly. You wouldn't leave him. Leave Liam, she scoffed. For you. He is a businessman, Dad. He has vision. You are just tired. You don't understand how the world works. You owe us this. You owe me. I looked at her, and for the first time in 30 years I didn't see my daughter. I saw a stranger. I saw a woman who had looked at her father and seen only an ATM. She didn't care about my happiness. She didn't care about my freedom. She only cared about what she could take from my cold, dead hands. Okay, Jasmine, I said, my voice void of emotion. I understand. Good, she said, standing up. I am glad we had this talk. Don't do anything stupid, Dad. Liam will handle the sale. Just sign the papers when he brings them. She grabbed her coffee and walked out of the room, leaving me alone in the kitchen. I sat there for a long time listening to the hum of the refrigerator. The morning light seemed dimmer now. The hope I had held onto, the small, foolish hope that I could save her, had flickered out. I stood up slowly. I walked back to my bedroom. I locked the door. I went to the bedside table. There was a framed photograph there taken 20 years ago. It was me, Coretta, and Jasmine on her 10th birthday. We were all smiling. Coretta had her hand on my shoulder, and Jasmine was holding a balloon. I looked at Coretta's face. Her eyes were warm and full of wisdom. She had warned me. She had told me that love without discipline creates monsters. I am sorry, Coretta, I whispered to the glass. I failed her, and I failed you. I picked up the frame. My hands were steady now. The trembling I had faked for days was gone. The hesitation was gone. I turned the photograph face down on the table. The wood made a sharp final sound against the surface. Jasmine Mercer died today, I said to the empty room. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt a cold, hard resolve settle into my chest where my heart used to be. The girl in the kitchen wasn't my daughter. She was an enemy combatant. She was a collaborator. She had chosen her side. She had chosen the man who called her a cow over the father who would have died for her. Fine. If she wanted the inheritance, she would get it. She would get exactly what she deserved. I walked over to my computer. I opened the file containing the evidence against Liam. I created a new folder. I named it Jasmine. I dragged the audio file of her screaming at me in the kitchen from the cloud server where the room mics had recorded it. I added the credit card records showing she had tried to open lines in my name. I was done protecting her. I was done being a father. I was Al Mercer, and I was going to war. I looked at the clock. It was time for the next phase. Liam would be bringing the lawyer soon. They wanted me to sign a power of attorney. They wanted control. I would give it to them, or at least I would let them think they had it. I opened my closet and pushed aside my old coats, revealing the small safe bolted to the floor. I spun the dial. Inside was not gold, not money, but a single, heavy iron key. It was the key to the outer door of the basement, the decoy key. I put it in my pocket. Tonight I would open the gate. Tonight I would let the wolves into the yard. They thought they were hunting a sheep. They were about to find out they were trapped in a cage with a lion. The lawyer Liam brought into my home that afternoon was not a man of law, he was a man of loopholes. His name was Mr. Finch, and he wore a suit that was 2 sizes too big and smelled of stale tobacco and cheap ambition. He didn't look me in the eye when he shook my hand. He looked at the walls, measuring the square footage with his eyes just like Liam did. "This is just a formality," Liam said, guiding me to the dining table where Jasmine was already seated. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she was staring at a spot on the tablecloth, refusing to look at her father. She knew what was happening. She knew they were about to strip me of my rights, and she was letting it happen. Mr. Finch opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick document stapled at the top. He slid it across the oak table toward me. "It is a standard power of attorney," Mr. Mercer Finch said, his voice oily and fast. "It simply allows your son-in-law and daughter to handle your affairs. You know banking, medical decisions, property management. It takes the burden off your shoulders." I looked at the document. The text was dense and deliberately confusing, but I had read technical manuals for nuclear reactor cooling systems in my 30s. I knew how to read fine print. I scanned the paragraphs. It wasn't just a management agreement. It was a total surrender. It gave Liam the power to sell my property without my consent, to access my safe deposit boxes, to make end-of-life medical decisions for me. It was a license to kill me and sell the parts. I looked at Liam. He was leaning forward, his elbows on the table, watching me with the intensity of a vulture waiting for a wounded animal to stop breathing. "Why do I need this?" I asked, my voice trembling just enough to sell the performance. "I pay my own bills. I manage just fine." Liam sighed, a sound of exaggerated patience. "Al, look at yourself," he said, gesturing at my old clothes and my cane. "You are getting older. You are forgetting things. Remember the coffee yesterday? You forgot how to drink coffee, Al. We are just trying to protect you. What if you fall? What if you get sick? Who will pay the doctors if we can't access your accounts?" He was using the poison he tried to feed me as evidence of my incompetence. It was a twisted brilliance that I almost admired. "I don't know," I mumbled, pushing the paper away slightly. "It seems like a lot. I should read it first. Maybe I should show it to my friend who knows about these things." Liam slammed his hand down on the table, making Jasmine jump. "There is no time for that, Al," he snapped. "Finch charges by the hour. Just sign the damn paper. Do you trust us or not?" I looked at Jasmine. "Do you think I should sign this, baby girl?" I asked her directly. She flinched. She looked at Liam, then back at the table. "Just sign it, Dad," she whispered. "It is for the best." That was the final nail. My daughter had just sold me out to a predator for the promise of a penthouse that didn't exist. "Okay," I said, my shoulders slumping in defeat. "I guess you know best." Finch handed me a fountain pen. It was a heavy, expensive thing, likely stolen from a previous client. "Sign right there at the bottom," he said, pointing with a yellow-stained finger. I took the pen. My hand shook violently. I hovered the nib over the signature line. Liam held his breath. I let the pen tip touch the paper, but instead of writing my name, I jerked my hand spasmodically. The nib dug into the paper, tearing it. A large blob of black ink exploded from the cartridge, pooling rapidly across the document and dripping onto the table. "Oh no!" I cried, dropping the pen. "Look what I did! I am so clumsy!" The ink soaked into the legal text, obliterating the clauses about property rights. The document was ruined. For a second, there was total silence. Then Liam exploded. "You stupid old fool," he roared. He lunged across the table. He didn't care about the lawyer. He didn't care about Jasmine. The mask of the caring son-in-law disintegrated completely, revealing the violent thug underneath. He grabbed my right wrist. His grip was hard, crushing the tendons against the bone. He yanked my arm toward him, dragging my chest against the edge of the table. "Look what you did!" he screamed, spitting in my face. "That was the only copy. Do you know how much trouble you are causing me?" He squeezed harder. His fingernails dug into my skin, breaking the surface. I saw the rage in his eyes. It was the rage of a man who owes $500,000 and sees his lifeline slipping away. "Sign it," he growled, his voice dropping to a terrifying low register. "Finch has another copy in the bag. You are going to sign it right now, old man. Don't make me hurt you. Don't make me use force. Pain shot up my arm, hot and sharp. He was trying to hurt me. He was trying to use physical dominance to break my will. I looked down at his hand gripping my wrist. His thumb was positioned high over my radius. His balance was forward. His weight was committed to the grab. In that split-second time seemed to slow down. I wasn't Al the shopkeeper. I was Sensei Mercer. Every morning at 4 a.m. for the last 30 years I have gone down to the padded mat in the back of my warehouse. I practice judo not as a hobby, but as a discipline. I know exactly how much pressure it takes to snap a wrist. I know that if I rotated my forearm 45 degrees clockwise and dropped my elbow, I could dislocate his shoulder before he even realized I had moved. I could pull him across the table and drive his face into the solid oak. I could end him right here, right now. The urge to do it was overwhelming. My muscles twitched with the memory of the movement. It would be so easy. It would be so satisfying to hear the snap of his bone and see the shock replace the arrogance in his eyes. But I stopped myself. If I fought back now, I would lose the war. I would reveal my strength too early. He would know I was faking. He would know I was dangerous. And he would come back with a gun instead of a lawyer. I had to be the victim. I had to be weak. I let out a high-pitched cry of pain and slumped forward, letting him crush my wrist. "Please, Liam." I begged, tears of genuine physical pain springing to my eyes. "You are hurting me. Please stop." Liam sneered, enjoying the power. He gave my arm one last vicious twist before shoving me back into my chair. "Then do as you are told," he spat. "Finch, get the other copy." I rubbed my wrist, nursing the bruise that was already forming. I looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. "I will sign." I stammered, my breath coming in short gasps. "I promise I will sign. But not now. My hand. It hurts too much. I can't hold the pen." Liam looked ready to hit me. "Tomorrow," I said quickly. "First thing, tomorrow morning. I will sign whatever you want." Liam glared at me, his chest heaving. "Why should I believe you, Al? You are stalling." "I am not stalling," I said, lowering my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. I want to make sure my affairs are in order before I give you control. There is something I need to get." Liam's ears perked up. "What? What do you need to get?" I looked around as if checking for spies, even though we were the only ones there. "Coretta's box," I whispered. The room went still. I saw the greed flare in Liam's eyes like a match striking gasoline. He exchanged a look with Jasmine. They had been tearing the house apart looking for valuables, but they hadn't found anything because everything that mattered was behind the steel door. "The box," I repeated. "It is heavy. Iron." She kept it in the basement, in the back room. I promised her I would never open it unless it was the end. I saw Liam doing the math in his head. Heavy, iron, basement. He was thinking gold. He was thinking jewels. He was thinking about $500,000 in cash. "Is it valuable?" Liam asked, trying to sound casual but failing. "It was everything to her," I said. "It is the family legacy." Liam licked his lips. "Okay, Al," he said, his voice suddenly smooth again. "Okay, here's the deal. We will wait until tomorrow morning to sign the papers, but tonight you take us down there. You open that door, and we get the box." I hesitated, pretending to be afraid. "You promise not to go down there," I said weakly. "Plans change, Al," Liam said, smiling that shark smile. "We need to secure the assets, for your protection." I looked down at the table, defeated. "Okay," I whispered. "Tonight, I will take you down." "Good," Liam said, clapping his hands together. He turned to the lawyer. "You can go, Finch. Come back at 9 a.m. He will sign." As the lawyer packed up his briefcase, I sat there rubbing my bruised wrist. Liam poured himself a drink, celebrating his victory. He thought he had won. He thought he had bullied an old man into submission. He didn't know that he had just accepted an invitation to his own execution. I felt the heavy iron key in my pocket. The decoy key. The key to a room I had prepared just for a moment like this. They wanted the family legacy. They wanted to see what was in the basement. I closed my eyes and concealed a smile. Be careful what you wish for, children. Because tonight you are going to get it. Tonight, the basement opens, and I hope you are ready for what is inside. The iron key felt heavy in my pocket like a stone pulled from a riverbed. It was midnight, and the house was silent except for the heavy breathing of the two vultures standing behind me. Liam and Jasmine were dressed in dark clothes as if they were going on a heist instead of walking down the stairs of their own family home. I led the way, my cane tapping a slow, rhythmic beat on the worn steps. I made sure to stumble once, gripping the railing with a gasp just to sell the image of a frail old man walking to his doom. Liam was practically vibrating with greed. He kept bumping into my back, urging me to move faster without actually saying the words. I could smell the alcohol on his sweat, a sour reminder of his desperation. Jasmine was quiet, holding a flashlight, her beam darting around the stairwell, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the stagnant air. She refused to look at me. She was focused entirely on the heavy steel door at the bottom of the landing. We reached the bottom. I stood before the door. To them, it looked like an impenetrable fortress, the barrier between them and a life of luxury. To me, it was just a prop. It was the outer shell, the decoy I had built years ago to hide the real entrance. I fumbled in my pocket, my hands shaking. I pulled out the iron key. It was old and rusted, perfectly matching the aesthetic of the door. "Hurry up!" Liam hissed close to my ear. "Open it!" I struggled to insert the key into the lock, scratching the metal plate several times. I heard Liam grind his teeth. Finally, I slid the key home. I turned it with a loud mechanical clank. The internal tumblers, heavy and unoiled, shifted into place. I pushed the door. It groaned on its hinges, a sound like a dying animal. I stepped aside, lowering my head. "It is open," I whispered. Liam didn't wait. He shoved past me, his shoulder hitting my chest hard enough to knock the wind out of me. He rushed into the darkness. Jasmine followed him, the beam of her flashlight cutting through the gloom. I stayed by the door watching. I knew exactly what they were going to see. I had prepared this room for 10 years, filling it with the detritus of a failed life. Liam found the light switch, a pull string hanging from a bare bulb in the center of the ceiling. He yanked it. The room flooded with a sickly yellow light. It was not a treasure chamber. It was a tomb of junk. The air smelled of mildew, wet cardboard, and rat droppings. Piles of old newspapers from the 80s were stacked against the walls. Broken furniture with stuffing spilling out like guts lay in heaps. Rusted bicycle parts, jars of old nails, and boxes of water-damaged books cluttered every square inch of the concrete floor. There was no gold. There were no jewels. There was only the sad accumulation of a hoarder. Liam spun around, his eyes wild. "What is this?" he screamed. "Where is it, Al? Where is the box?" I pointed a shaking finger toward the far corner of the room. There, nestled behind a stack of rotting magazines, was a small black safe. It was old, the paint peeling, the dial rusted. Liam scrambled over the trash, kicking aside a broken lamp. He fell on his knees in front of the safe. He caressed the cold metal as if it were a lover. "This is it," he breathed. "This is it, Jasmine. Help me with the light." Jasmine shone the flashlight on the dial. Her hands were shaking too. "What is the combination?" Liam demanded, not looking at me. I walked slowly into the room, careful where I stepped. I stopped a few feet away. Left to 20, I rasped. Right to 10. Left to 5. Liam spun the dial. His movements were frantic. He missed the number once cursed and started over. I watched him sweating, panting, his desperation filling the room. He wasn't opening a safe, he was trying to save his life. He needed that money. Vinny the shark was waiting. Click. The final tumbler fell into place. Liam grabbed the handle. He pulled. The heavy door of the safe creaked open. He reached inside, his hand disappeared into the dark cavity. Jasmine leaned forward, holding her breath. I stood still, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm. Liam froze. He pulled his hand out. He wasn't holding a bar of gold. He wasn't holding a stack of cash. He was holding a single piece of yellowed paper. He looked inside the safe again. He felt around the corners. He shook the safe, trying to hear a rattle. Nothing. It was empty. "What is this?" Liam whispered, his voice trembling with a terrifying mix of rage and disbelief. He looked at the paper in his hand. It was a receipt from a pawn shop dated 40 years ago. It showed that I had pawned Coretta's wedding ring for $50 to pay an electricity bill. It was a fake, of course, a prop I had aged with tea and heat, but it looked real enough to break a man's spirit. "It is a debt," I said softly. "That is the legacy, Liam. We were poor. We were always poor. I kept it to remind me of how hard we tried." Liam stared at the paper. His face went pale, then red, then a dark, violent purple. The vein in his forehead bulged. The reality of his situation crashed down on him. He owed $500,000. He had bet everything on this moment. And he had lost. He let out a scream that sounded less like a human and more like a wounded beast. He crumbled the paper in his fist and threw it at me. "You lied," he shrieked. "You lied to us." He stood up, kicking the safe. He grabbed a wooden chair and smashed it against the wall, the wood splintering into jagged shards. He started tearing through the piles of newspapers, throwing them into the air, creating a blizzard of trash. "There has to be more," he yelled, tearing cushions off a moldy sofa. "Where is the money, Al? Where is the gold? People said you had gold." "Rumors," I said, my voice steady amidst his chaos. "Just rumors, son. I am a toy maker. I have nothing." Liam stopped destroying the room. He turned to me. His chest was heaving. His eyes were dead, devoid of any humanity. He walked toward me, slowly stepping over the debris he had created. "You wasted my time," he growled. "You wasted my life." I looked at Jasmine. She was standing in the corner, crying silently. She wasn't crying for me. She wasn't crying because her husband was destroying her father's things. She was crying because there was no penthouse. There was no shopping spree. "Jasmine," I said, appealing to her one last time, "stop him." She looked at me, and then she looked away. She turned her back on me. Liam reached me. He didn't hesitate. He swung his hand back and struck me across the face. The slap was hard. It knocked the glasses off my face. I stumbled backward, falling onto a pile of old clothes. My cheek burned. The taste of blood filled my mouth. "Where is it?" Liam screamed, standing over me. "You are hiding it. I know you are. Old men like you always stash cash. Tell me where it is, or I will tear this house apart brick by brick." I looked up at him from the floor. I touched my bleeding lip. I looked at Jasmine's back. "There is nothing," I said, spitting blood onto the concrete. "You are looking at a poor man, Liam. You picked the wrong victim." Liam raised his foot to kick me, but then he stopped. He looked around the damp, filthy room. He looked at me lying in the trash. Disgust washed over his face. "You are pathetic," he spat. "You are nothing. You are just a waste of space." He turned around and stormed out of the room, pushing past Jasmine. "Come on," he barked at her. "Let us get out of this stinking hole. We have to figure out what to do. The realtor. We have to sell the house. It is the only way." Jasmine followed him without a word, without a backward glance. They left me lying on the floor of the fake basement, surrounded by the wreckage of their expectations. I listened to their footsteps fading up the stairs. I heard the door at the top of the stairs slam shut. I lay there for a moment, letting the silence settle back into the room. My face throbbed. My hip ached from the fall. But inside, I felt a cold, dark satisfaction. He had done it. He had crossed the final line. He had laid hands on me. I sat up, slowly wiping the blood from my lip with my sleeve. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I opened the app. Across the room on a dusty shelf sat a collection of old porcelain dolls. Their dresses were faded, their hair matted. In the center sat a large doll with one missing eye. But the other eye, the blue glass eye, was perfectly intact, and behind that blue glass was a high-definition lens. I tapped the screen. The video file was already uploading to the cloud server. It was perfect. The audio was crisp, picking up every threat, every insult. The video was clear, showing Liam's face twisted in rage, showing the slap, showing Jasmine turning her back. I had them. This wasn't just elder abuse. This was assault. This was attempted extortion. This was evidence that would put Liam away for a long time and leave Jasmine with nothing but her shame. I stood up, dusting off my trousers. I found my glasses on the floor. One lens was cracked. It was a fitting metaphor. My view of my family was broken forever. I looked at the camera lens hidden in the doll's eye. "You want to sell the house, Liam," I whispered to the empty room. "You want to see what this place is worth. Fine. I will let you try. I will let you bring your realtor. I will let you bring your buyers, because that is exactly how I am going to get you into the real basement. That is how I am going to show you what you really threw away." I walked to the safe and picked up the crumbled receipt Liam had thrown at me. I smoothed it out. "The debt is due," I said, "and the interest is going to be expensive." I climbed the stairs, leaving the light on in the dungeon of trash. It was time for the next phase. Tasha was waiting for the signal. The Omega Protocol was ready. Liam thought he was desperate before. He had no idea what desperation was, but he was about to learn. He was about to learn that the poorest man in the room is sometimes the one holding the keys to the kingdom. And the king was done playing nice. The morning after the basement disaster, the air in my house was thick enough to choke a man. It smelled of stale sweat, spilled alcohol, and the sour reek of panic. I sat at my kitchen table, nursing a swollen lip where Liam had struck me. My hand trembled not from an act, but from a genuine spike in my blood pressure. I had not taken my medication in 24 hours because Liam, in his rage the night before, had swept the entire contents of my medicine cabinet into a trash bag and thrown it into the alley dumpster. He called it cleaning out the junk. He didn't know he was throwing away the chemical anchor that kept my heart from exploding. Liam was pacing the living room floor, his phone pressed to his ear. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. His eyes were bloodshot and his expensive shirt was wrinkled and stained. He was shouting at someone on the other end of the line. "I do not care what the market value is," he screamed, kicking the leg of my armchair. "I want a cash offer today. I want the money in escrow by Friday. Do you hear me?" Friday. I listened quietly, sipping a glass of tap water. He was calling a liquidator. In Chicago, we call them vultures. They are the realtors who circle neighborhoods like mine looking for desperate people. They buy properties for pennies on the dollar, usually from grieving widows or drug-addicted heirs, and then flip them to gentrifiers for a massive profit. Liam was selling my legacy for scrap. He hung up the phone and turned to Jasmine. She was sitting at the table across from me, staring into a bowl of dry cereal. She looked like a ghost. "It is done," Liam announced, wiping his forehead with his sleeve. "I called Heavy Hand Properties. They are sending a guy over in an hour. He says if the structure is sound, he can give us $300,000 cash. $300,000. My heart skipped a dangerous beat. The land alone was worth $2 million. The building was worth another $1 million. And the technology in the sub-basement was priceless. He was selling a kingdom for the price of a used car because he was terrified of Vinny the Shark. Jasmine looked up. $300,000, she whispered. "Liam, that is nothing. Dad said the land was worth more." "Shut up," Jasmine, Liam snapped. "Your dad is a liar. He lied about the gold. He lied about the legacy. He is just a broke old man with a rotting building. We take the 300 and we run. It is enough to keep Vinny off my back for a few months." He looked at me then. His eyes narrowed. "And you," he said, pointing a shaking finger at my face, "you are going to be a problem. The realtor can't see you. He can't see a senile old man living here. He will think there are legal complications. He will think you have rights. I have rights," I said, my voice raspy. "This is my house, Liam. My name is on the deed." "Not for long," Liam sneered. He walked over to me. He grabbed my arm, the same one he had bruised the day before. "Get up." "Where are we going?" I asked, resisting slightly. "To your room," Liam said, dragging me out of the chair. "And you are going to stay there. You are not going to make a sound. You are not going to come out until I tell you." He shoved me down the hallway. Jasmine watched us go. She didn't move. She didn't say a word. She just let him drag her father away like a sack of garbage. He pushed me into my bedroom. I stumbled and fell onto the bed. Liam didn't leave immediately. He walked to the window, the one that looked out onto the street. He pulled the heavy curtains shut, plunging the room into semi-darkness. Then he took a hammer and 4 long nails from his pocket. He had come prepared. He hammered the window frame shut. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoed in my skull, amplifying the headache that was starting to throb behind my eyes. "Don't want you wandering off," he grunted. "Or signaling the neighbors." He walked to the door. "If I hear a peep out of you, Al," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "I will come back in here and I will finish what I started in the basement. Do you understand?" I looked at him from the bed. I didn't answer. He slammed the door. I heard the click of the lock. Then I heard something else. The sound of a heavy piece of furniture being dragged across the wooden floor outside. He was barricading the door. I was a prisoner. The first few hours were bearable. I lay on the bed and practiced my breathing exercises, trying to keep my heart rate down. I knew Tasha would be worried soon. We had a protocol. Every morning at 10 a.m., I walked to the corner store to buy a newspaper. It was a simple ritual. If I didn't show up, it meant something was wrong. 10 o'clock came and went. I imagined Tasha sitting in her car down the block, checking her watch. She would wait 15 minutes. Then she would drive by the shop. She would see the closed sign. She would see the Range Rover parked out front. By noon, the room was stifling hot. Liam had turned off the air conditioning to save money, I assumed, or maybe just to make me suffer. The air was stagnant. My throat was parched. I got up to get water from the bathroom tap, but when I turned the handle, nothing came out. A dry hiss. He had shut off the water to my suite. Panic is a cold sensation that starts in the stomach. I felt it then. This wasn't just containment, this was torture. He was trying to weaken me. He wanted me pliable, desperate, and confused for when he needed me to sign the deed transfer. I went back to the bed. My chest felt tight. Without the beta blockers, my heart was working too hard, pushing blood through arteries that had stiffened with age. I felt a flutter, a skip in the rhythm. I closed my eyes and focused on Coretta's face. I focused on the memory of her humming in the garden. I had to stay calm. Stress would kill me faster than dehydration. At 2 o'clock, I heard voices outside my door. It was the realtor. I heard heavy boots walking around the living room. I heard Liam's voice, high and eager, selling the features of the house he hated. Great bones, Liam was saying. Needs a gut renovation, obviously. But the location is prime. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pound on the door and yell that I was being held against my will. But I remembered Liam's threat. He was desperate enough to hurt me right in front of a stranger. And a realtor who buys houses for cash in this neighborhood wouldn't care if there was a body in the closet as long as the title was clear, so I stayed silent. I let them haggle over the price of my life. Around 6 p.m., the door opened. The barricade was dragged aside. Jasmine entered holding a plastic tray. She looked terrible. Her eyes were puffy and she wouldn't look at me. Here, she said, placing the tray on the dresser. Dinner. I looked at the food. It was a single slice of white bread and a glass of warm tap water. Is this it? I asked, my voice a dry croak. It is all we have, Dad, she whispered. Liam says we have to ration until the sale goes through. He took my cards. He took everything. She turned to leave. Jasmine, I said, stopping her. My medicine. Liam threw it away. I need it. My heart is skipping beats. She paused at the door. She gripped the frame, her knuckles white. I told him, she said, her voice trembling. I told him you needed it. He said you are faking it. He said you are just trying to manipulate us again. She looked at me then. I saw the conflict in her eyes, the war between her conscience and her fear of her husband. Fear was winning. I am sorry, Dad, she said. Just hold on a little longer. Once we get the money, we will buy you the best medicine. I promise. She stepped out and the door slammed shut again. The barricade scraped back into place. I ate the bread. I drank the water. It wasn't enough. My head was pounding. My vision was starting to blur at the edges. I lay back down. The darkness of the room seemed to have weight pressing down on my chest. I checked my watch. 8 p.m. I had missed the morning signal. I had missed the afternoon check-in. Tasha knew. By now she knew I was compromised. I closed my eyes and let my mind drift away from the pain in my body. I thought about Tasha. She wasn't just an assistant. She was the granddaughter I never had. I found her 5 years ago working at a library trying to teach herself Python on a public computer. I saw the spark in her. The hunger. I gave her a job. I taught her everything I knew about engineering, about code, about survival. We had prepared for this day. We called it the Omega Protocol. It was the nuclear option, the plan designed for a scenario where I was incapacitated, trapped, and unable to fight physically. It relied on greed. It relied on the absolute certainty that men like Liam cannot resist a shiny object. I lay in the dark, my heart fluttering like a trapped bird, and I waited. I knew Tasha was out there. I knew she was sitting in front of her monitors, her face illuminated by the glow of the code we had written together. She would be making the call right now. She would be setting the bait. I just had to stay alive long enough for Liam to bite. My breathing was shallow. The room spun slightly when I turned my head. I was weak, truly weak. For the first time in this entire charade, I didn't have to act. I was a dying old man locked in a room by his children. But even as my body failed, my mind held on to one thought: the look on Liam's face when the real door opens. I drifted into a fitful sleep, dreaming of titanium walls and the sound of justice approaching like a freight train. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Liam shouting. He wasn't shouting in anger. He was shouting in excitement. "Jasmine, get up," he yelled. "You are not going to believe this." I dragged myself to the door and pressed my ear against the wood. My legs were shaking so bad I had to lean against the frame. "What is it?" Jasmine asked, her voice sleepy. "I just got a call," Liam said. "A private number. It was a representative for a venture capital fund. A big one." So Jasmine asked, "So they are interested in the house," Liam said, his voice vibrating with greed. "Not the land. The house. They said their client collects historic properties in Chicago. They want to restore it." "Okay," Jasmine said, sounding confused. "Does that mean we get more money?" "More money?" Liam laughed. Babe, they offered $5 million. Cash, sight unseen. They just want a tour today. Today, Jasmine. $5 million. Jasmine's voice went up an octave. Yes, Liam screamed. $5 million. We are rich. We are actually rich. I slumped against the door and slid down to the floor. A weak smile cracked my dry lips. Tasha. She had done it. She had launched the hook. $5 million was an absurd amount. It was a number designed to short-circuit Liam's brain to make him forget all caution, all logic. He wouldn't ask questions. He wouldn't wonder why a venture fund wanted a run-down toy shop. He would only see the escape from Vinny. He would only see the penthouse. I heard heavy footsteps coming toward my door. The barricade was pulled away. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Liam stood there beaming. He looked like a man who had just won the lottery. He didn't see a sick old man on the floor. He saw a prop that needed to be polished. Get up, Al, he said, reaching down and pulling me to my feet with surprising gentleness. We have company coming. VIPs. You need to wash up. You need to look alive. I let him pull me up. I swayed, dizzy and nauseous. Water, I whispered. Please. Liam laughed. You can have champagne later, old man. Right now you need a shave. We are selling this dump, and you are going to help us close the deal. He dragged me toward the bathroom. I stumbled along, letting him think he was in control. $5 million. The trap was set. The bait was taken. Now all I had to do was lead him to the slaughter. I watched through the slats of the barricaded window as a vehicle that cost more than the entire block pulled up to the curb in front of my toy shop. It was a matte black Maybach with tinted windows, a machine of pure intimidation and wealth. It looked like a spaceship that had landed in a junkyard. The neighborhood kids who usually played stickball in the street stopped and stared, their mouths hanging open. Even the stray dogs seemed to give the car a wide berth out of respect. Liam was practically vibrating next to me, peeking through the curtain with a manic grin plastered on his face. He gripped my shoulder, his fingers digging into my thin flesh. "Do you see that, Al?" he whispered, his voice trembling with greed. "That is the smell of money. Real money. $5 million is sitting in that car." The rear door of the car opened. A woman stepped out. She was tall, imposing, and dressed in a white suit that was so sharp it could cut glass. She wore dark sunglasses and carried a slim leather briefcase. She didn't look at the cracked sidewalk or the graffiti on the walls. She looked directly at the shop door with the confidence of a woman who owned the world. I recognized her immediately, though Liam had no clue who she was. To him, she was just a representative of a venture capital fund, a faceless savior with a checkbook. To me, she was Ms. Sato. She was not an investor. She was one of the most ruthless corporate litigators in Chicago, a woman I had retained 10 years ago to handle my patent filings. Tasha had called in the heavy artillery. Liam spun me around, his eyes wild. "She is here. It is happening. Now listen to me, old man. You are going to go out there and you are going to be charming. You are going to be the eccentric artist. You are going to smile and nod and sign whatever she puts in front of you." I looked at him, my body weak from hunger and lack of medication, but my mind razor sharp. "And if I don't," I asked, my voice a dry rasp. Liam's face twisted. He leaned in close, his breath hot and sour against my face. "If you mess this up, Al, if you say one word about the basement or the will or anything other than thank you, I will wait until she leaves. Then I will take you down to that hole in the ground. I will put you in that empty safe, and I will pour concrete over it. I will bury you alive, Al, and I will sleep like a baby, knowing I am rich." He meant it. I could see the murder in his eyes. He had crossed the point of no return. He was terrified of Vinny the shark, and terror makes men do unspeakable things. I nodded slowly, playing the part of the cowed victim. "I understand," I whispered. "Good," Liam said, straightening up. "Now let us get you cleaned up. You smell like a corpse." He dragged me into the bathroom. The next 30 minutes were a blur of humiliation and rough handling. Liam stripped off my pajamas and shoved me into the shower, turning the water on cold to shock me awake. He scrubbed my back with a rough sponge, muttering about how disgusting old skin was. He shaved my face with a disposable razor, pressing too hard, nicking my chin. "Hold still," he barked as blood beaded on my jaw. "You are bleeding on the merchandise." He dabbed the cut with toilet paper and threw a clean shirt at me. It was one of my old flannels ironed badly by Jasmine. "Put this on," he ordered. "And these pants." Look like a craftsman. Look like someone who makes toys, not someone who is dying. I dressed slowly, my fingers fumbling with the buttons. My heart was fluttering, a dangerous arrhythmia in my chest. I needed my beta blockers. I felt dizzy, lightheaded, but I forced myself to focus. I had to make it downstairs. I had to deliver the message. Jasmine appeared in the doorway holding a glass of orange juice. Her hands were shaking so bad the liquid was sloshing over the rim. "Here, Dad," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Drink this. It will help with the sugar levels. You look pale." I took the glass. I looked at her. She was complicit in my torture. She had watched him starve me. She had watched him threaten me. And now she was giving me juice so I would have enough energy to sign away her inheritance. "Thank you, baby girl," I said, my voice dripping with a sadness she mistook for senility. I drank the juice. The sugar hit my bloodstream like a jolt of electricity. I felt a little steadier. "Let us go," Liam said, grabbing my arm. "It is showtime." We walked down the back stairs to the shop. The shop was dusty, filled with the wooden horses and tin soldiers I had made over the years. Ms. Sato was already inside, examining a mechanical bird with a critical eye. She turned as we entered. She took off her sunglasses, revealing eyes that were cold and calculating. "Mr. Mercer," she said, ignoring Liam and walking straight to me. "It is an honor. I am Ms. Sato, representing the Helios Fund." She extended her hand. I took it. Her grip was firm, warm, and reassuring. She squeezed my hand twice. A signal. She knew the plan. "I am Al," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Welcome to my shop. This is incredible," Ms. Sato said, sweeping her hand around the room. "The history here, the craftsmanship. My clients are very interested in preserving this legacy. We are prepared to offer $5 million for the property and the inventory. As is. Cash. Today." Liam let out a sound that was half gasp, half whimper. "5 million, he breathed. That is very generous." "We believe in paying for value," Ms. Sato said, still looking at me. "Mr. Mercer, are you willing to sell?" I looked at Liam. He was staring at me, his eyes wide, pleading, threatening. He made a subtle motion with his hand, miming a zipper across his lips. "Remember the threat. Remember the concrete." I looked back at Ms. Sato. "It is a lot of money," I said slowly. "I have lived here a long time. It is hard to let go." "Of course," Ms. Sato said. "We can handle all the paperwork. You won't have to do a thing. We just need to inspect the structural integrity of the lower levels. The foundation." Liam stepped forward, eager to please. "The foundation is solid," he lied. "Rock solid. I can show you the basement. It is just storage, really. Nothing down there but old junk." Ms. Sato raised an eyebrow. "Just storage. I was told there might be historical machinery, coal chutes, vintage boilers. We need to document everything." She looked at me, expecting the signal. This was the moment. The script Tasha had written required me to get them into the basement, but I couldn't just invite them down there without raising Liam's suspicions. I had to make it sound like an old man's rambling concern. I cleared my throat. I leaned heavily on my cane, acting as if I was about to collapse. "You can see the basement," I said, my voice weak. "But you have to be careful." Careful of what? Liam snapped, his smile tight. "The stairs are fine, Al." "Not the stairs," I said, looking directly at Ms. Sato, my eyes locking onto hers with intense clarity. "The air. The ventilation system in the basement needs to be checked carefully. It hasn't been working right since Coretta died. Sometimes it gets stuck." Ms. Sato didn't blink. She didn't smile. She just nodded once slowly. "Ventilation is very important," she said, her voice professional and detached. "We will certainly check the ventilation system, Mr. Mercer. Thank you for the warning." I saw Liam relax. He thought I was just being a senile old fool worrying about drafts and dust. He didn't know that the ventilation system needs to be checked was a coded phrase I had established with Tasha 5 years ago. It meant the hostiles are armed and desperate. Proceed with extreme caution. Initiate the lockdown sequence on my command. It was the signal for Tasha to override the safety protocols on the basement door. It meant that once we went down there, the door would seal behind us, and it wouldn't open for anyone but me. "Excellent," Liam said, clapping his hands. "Shall we go down?" "Lead the way," Ms. Sato said, gesturing for him to go first. Liam grabbed a flashlight from the counter. "Follow me," he said. "Watch your step. It is a bit dark." He opened the door to the basement stairs. He went down first, eager to show off the empty room, eager to close the deal. Jasmine followed him nervously, wringing her hands. Miss Sato stepped aside, waiting for me. "After you, Mr. Mercer," she said softly. I walked past her. As I passed, I whispered one word. Omega. She whispered back. Active. I started down the stairs. My legs were heavy, but my spirit was soaring. They were walking into the belly of the beast. Liam thought he was selling a house. He didn't know he was walking into a high-tech prison cell. We reached the bottom landing. Liam was already at the fake steel door, the one he had opened the night before. It was unlocked just as I had left it. Here it is, he announced, pushing the door open with a flourish. The famous basement. As you can see, it is just a mess. We will clear all this trash out before closing, obviously. Miss Sato walked into the room. She looked around at the piles of newspapers, the broken furniture, the empty safe. She didn't look impressed. She looked bored. This is it, she asked. This is the entire basement. That is it, Liam said, sweating slightly. Just storage. Like I said. Miss Sato turned to me. Mr. Mercer, she said. Is this everything? I stood in the doorway, leaning on my cane. I looked at Liam. I looked at the greed dripping off him like sweat. I looked at Jasmine hiding in the shadows. No, I said, my voice suddenly strong, clear, and devoid of any tremor. This is not everything. This is just the garbage. Liam frowned. Al, what are you doing? Shut up. I ignored him. I walked past him, moving toward the back wall of the room. The wall was covered in rotting wood paneling and a bookshelf filled with water-damaged encyclopedias. Liam laughed nervously. He is confused, Miss Sato. He thinks there is gold down here. But we checked. There is nothing. There is no gold, I said, stopping in front of the bookshelf. Gold is for simple men. Gold is heavy. Gold is stupid. I reached out. I didn't reach for a book. I reached for a small knot in the wood of the shelf frame. It looked like a natural imperfection in the timber. Liam stepped forward, his fists clenching. Al, stop it. You are embarrassing us. I pressed the knot. It wasn't wood. It was a biometric scanner painted to look like oak. It read my thumbprint in a microsecond. A deep thrumming sound filled the room. It sounded like a jet engine powering up deep underground. The floor vibrated beneath our feet. Liam froze. What is that noise? The bookshelf didn't swing open like a door in a movie. It dissolved. The wood panels retracted inwards and slid sideways into the wall with a smooth hydraulic hiss, revealing a seamless sheet of glass and steel behind it. Lights flickered on behind the glass. Blue LED strips illuminated a corridor that stretched downward, white and pristine and utterly futuristic. Liam's jaw dropped. Jasmine screamed. Miss Sato smiled. I turned to Liam. You wanted to see the legacy, son, I said, dropping my cane and standing to my full height. You wanted to know what Al Mercer is worth. I gestured to the glowing corridor. Welcome to the real world. I stepped toward the glass. The biometric sensors recognized my gait, and the glass panel slid open silently. Liam stood there paralyzed. He looked at the dirty room he was standing in. Then he looked at the clean laboratory light spilling out from the hidden corridor. His brain couldn't process it. He couldn't reconcile the poor old man with the sci-fi reality in front of him. After you, I said to Miss Sato. She walked in her heels, clicking on the polished white floor. Liam shook his head. No. No way. This isn't real. It is real, I said, and it is worth a lot more than $5 million. Greed is a powerful drug. It overcame his shock. It overcame his fear. He saw the lights. He saw the expensive materials, and he ran toward it. He ran past me into the corridor. Jasmine followed him, drawn like a moth to the flame. I stepped in last. I pressed a panel on the wall. The bookshelf slid back into place behind us, sealing the opening. The lock engaged with a sound like a gunshot. We were in, and there was no way out. The air in the stairwell grew colder with every step we took, descending into the dark underbelly of the shop. Liam led the way, holding the flashlight like a weapon, his knuckles white against the black plastic casing. I could hear his breathing, ragged and shallow, echoing off the narrow walls. He was terrified, not of the dark, but of the deal falling apart. He needed Miss Sato to see value in this rotting building, but he knew better than anyone that the room at the bottom of the stairs was filled with nothing but trash and broken dreams. I walked behind him, clutching the railing, forcing my legs to tremble as if the descent was a physical struggle. In reality, my heart was beating with the steady rhythm of a countdown clock. Jasmine followed me, her heels clicking nervously on the concrete steps. She was silent, a shadow of the arrogant woman who had demanded I sell my life to fund her vacation. She was beginning to sense that the ground beneath her feet was shifting, but she had no idea just how deep the hole really went. Miss Sato brought up the rear, moving with the silent grace of a predator. She didn't need a flashlight. She didn't need reassurance. She was the only one besides me who knew exactly where this path led. We reached the bottom landing. The air here was stagnant, smelling of wet cardboard and decades of neglect. Liam stopped in front of the heavy iron door, the decoy I had installed 20 years ago. He fumbled with the handle, his hands shaking. He looked back at Ms. Sato, a desperate smile plastered on his sweating face. "Watch your step," he said, his voice high and tight. "It is a little cluttered down here. We haven't had a chance to organize the inventory yet." He pushed the door open. It groaned on its rusted hinges, a sound of pure decay. He stepped inside and swept the flashlight beam around the room, trying to highlight the few pieces of furniture that weren't completely destroyed by mold. "Here we are," he announced, stepping aside to let Miss Sato enter. "The heart of the building. As you can see, it is structurally sound, dry, secure, perfect for storage or maybe a wine cellar if you renovate." Ms. Sato walked into the room. She stood in the center of the debris, surrounded by stacks of water-damaged newspapers and piles of rusted scrap metal. She looked at the peeling paint on the walls. She looked at the single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. She looked at the empty safe in the corner, the one Liam had broken into the night before. She turned slowly to face Liam. Her expression was unreadable behind her dark glasses, but the set of her jaw suggested profound, unimpressed boredom. "Mr. Black," she said, using Liam's last name with a tone that made it sound like an insult. "You told me on the phone that this property had unique historical value. You told me there were assets here worth preserving." Liam swallowed hard. He stepped forward, wringing his hands. "There are," he insisted, pointing at a pile of broken chairs. "Look at this wood. This is original oak from the 1920s, and that safe over there. It is vintage. Collectors pay a fortune for that kind of industrial aesthetic." Miss Sato didn't even look where he was pointing. She kept her eyes fixed on him. "I see a room full of garbage, Mr. Black," she said coldly. "I see a fire hazard. I see a liability. If this is all there is, I am afraid my client has been misinformed. $5 million for a dusty shop and a basement full of trash is not a wise investment." Panic flared in Liam's eyes. He saw his lifeline snapping. He saw Vinny the shark waiting for him in the alley. He saw his life ending. "No, wait!" he stammered, stepping closer to her, invading her personal space in his desperation. "You are not looking at the potential. The square footage alone is worth it. You can gut this. You can build anything down here. A speakeasy, a server room, anything." Miss Sato took a step back, her nose wrinkling slightly as if she could smell the fear on him. "My client is not interested in potential," she said. "My client buys reality, and the reality is that I am standing in a damp hole in the ground. I think we are done here." She turned as if to leave. Liam froze. He looked at me, his eyes wide and pleading. He needed me to save him. He needed the old man to say something magical to convince the lady with the money to stay. "Al," he hissed, grabbing my arm and digging his fingers into my bicep. Tell her about the history. Tell her about the foundation. Do something." I looked at him. I looked at the sweat dripping down his temple. I looked at the terror in his eyes. I pulled my arm away from his grip. I stood up straighter, shedding 5 years of age in a single motion. I dropped the act of the confused geriatric. "I don't need to tell her about the history, Liam," I said, my voice dropping to a low baritone that vibrated in the small room. "I need to show her the future." Liam blinked, confused. "What are you talking about, Al? Just tell her the building is solid." I ignored him. I turned my back on him and walked toward the far wall. The wall was covered by a massive, rotting wooden bookshelf filled with waterlogged encyclopedias and jars of rusted nails. It looked like it hadn't been moved since the Kennedy administration. Spiderwebs draped across the corners like gray lace. Ms. Sato stopped walking. She turned back to watch me. A small, knowing smile played on her lips. "Mr. Mercer," she said softly, "is there something you want to show us?" I stopped in front of the bookshelf. I looked at the spine of a particular book on the third shelf. It was a copy of Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. It was fitting. They had looked at me for years and seen nothing but a black man in a toy shop. They had never seen the man underneath. Liam rushed toward me. "Al, what are you doing?" he snapped. "Get away from there. You are going to knock it over. It is just old books." He reached out to grab my shoulder, to pull me back, to shove me into the corner where he thought I belonged. "Don't touch me," I said without turning around. My voice was not loud, but it had the density of lead. Liam stopped. He hesitated. For the first time, he sensed that the dynamic in the room had shifted. He sensed that the mouse was no longer running. I reached out with my right hand. I didn't pull the book. I pressed my thumb against the leather spine. Hidden beneath the worn material was a biometric reader I had scavenged from a defunct military contractor 10 years ago. It read my print instantly. There was no beep. There was no flashing light. There was only a deep, heavy thud that came from inside the wall itself. It sounded like a giant heart beating once deep within the earth. The floor beneath our feet vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. Jasmine screamed and grabbed Liam's arm. "What is happening?" she cried. "Is it an earthquake?" Liam looked around wildly. "Al, what did you do?" he shouted. "Did you break something?" I stepped back from the bookshelf. "Watch," I said. The bookshelf didn't swing open on hinges. That would have been too simple. Instead, the entire section of the wall, 12 feet wide and 8 feet high, began to move. It didn't scrape against the floor. It floated. I had built the mechanism using magnetic levitation rails similar to the ones used in high-speed trains. The heavy oak shelf laden with hundreds of pounds of books slid silently to the left, gliding as smoothly as a cloud across the sky. The rotting wood, the dust, the spider webs, it all moved aside, revealing what had been hiding behind it for 2 decades. Liam gasped. The sound was sucked out of his lungs. Behind the bookshelf was a wall of pristine tempered glass. It stretched from floor to ceiling, flawlessly clear and inches thick. Beyond the glass was not darkness, it was light. Cool blue LED strips embedded in the floor and ceiling illuminated a corridor that stretched downward at a steep angle. The walls of the corridor were lined with white soundproofing panels. The floor was polished steel. It looked like the entrance to a spacecraft or a clean room at a billion-dollar tech firm. It was impossible. It defied every assumption Liam had ever made about me, about this house, about this neighborhood. He stared at it, his mouth hanging open, his eyes bulging. He looked from the dirty concrete floor he was standing on to the gleaming, futuristic tunnel just a few feet away. His brain couldn't reconcile the two images. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "This is not. This can't be here." Jasmine was silent, her hands covering her mouth. She stared at the tunnel as if she were looking at a portal to another dimension. Miss Sato walked up to stand beside me. She looked at the glass and nodded appreciatively. "Impressive work, Mr. Mercer," she said. "The biometrics are integrated seamlessly." I turned to Liam. He was still frozen, staring at the light. "You wanted to know what was in the basement, Liam," I said. "You wanted to know where the value was." I pointed at the glass. "The gold you were looking for is dirt compared to what is down there." I stepped up to the glass panel. A second scanner beamed a grid of red light into my retina. "Welcome, Mr. Mercer," a computerized voice said, smooth and synthetic, filling the room. The glass panel hissed and slid open, retracting into the wall. A rush of cool, filtered air blew out, carrying the scent of ozone and sterilized equipment. It smelled like the future. I looked at Liam. "Are you coming?" I asked. "Or do you want to stay in the garbage?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. He just stared at the tunnel, his greed warring with his shock. He saw the lights. He saw the expensive materials. And in his mind, the number 5 million dissolved and was replaced by something much, much larger. He took a step forward, then another. He moved like a zombie drawn by the light. Jasmine followed him, clutching the back of his jacket. I watched them enter the corridor. They were walking into my world now. And in my world, there is no mercy for thieves. I gestured for Ms. Sato to follow. She stepped into the tunnel, her heels clicking sharply on the steel. I walked in last. I pressed my hand against the inner control panel. The glass door slid shut. The bookshelf outside glided back into place, sealing the entrance. The lock engaged with a final metallic clank that sounded like the door of a vault closing forever. We were sealed in. The air was recycled. The walls were soundproof. No one could hear them scream. And believe me, they were going to scream when they saw what was waiting at the bottom of the shaft. The glass elevator descended smoothly into the earth, carrying us away from the rotting wood and the smell of mildew into a world that existed only in the dreams of futurists. We dropped 20 feet, then 30. The silence in the small cabin was absolute. Liam was breathing hard, fogging up the glass with his open mouth. Jasmine was clutching his arm, her nails digging into his jacket. They were terrified not of the depth, but of the unknown. They had lived their entire lives thinking they knew everything about me. They thought they knew my history, my bank account, and my limitations. They were about to learn that they knew nothing. The elevator slowed to a halt with a soft chime. The doors slid open. We stepped out onto a platform that overlooked a cavernous space carved directly into the bedrock beneath Chicago. It was not a basement. It was a cathedral of technology. The air was scrubbed clean, filtered to a level of purity found only in surgical theaters and microchip foundries. It smelled of ozone and ionized air. The lighting was not the yellow glare of incandescent bulbs. It was a soft, cool blue glow that emanated from strips embedded in the floor and ceiling, giving the entire space an ethereal underwater quality. Rows of server racks hummed with a low vibration, a sound that I felt in my teeth. They were processing data at speeds that would make the computers at the Pentagon look like abacuses. But it was the center of the room that stole the breath from their lungs. In the middle of the pristine white floor, 12 robotic arms moved in a synchronized dance. They were sleek chrome appendages moving with a speed and precision that the human eye could barely track. They were assembling something microscopic. Lasers flashed like tiny stars as the arms welded, soldered, and tested components on a silicon wafer the size of a dinner plate. This was the silent foundry. This was where I had spent the last 20 years. While Liam and Jasmine thought I was upstairs watching daytime television or napping in my chair, I was down here fulfilling contracts for entities that did not exist on public ledgers. I was building guidance chips for the next generation of Mars rovers. I was designing battery efficiency modules for electric vehicles that hadn't been announced yet. I watched Liam's face. The shock was physical. He looked like a man who had walked into a cave expecting bats and found a dragon sleeping on a pile of diamonds. He stumbled forward, walking to the railing of the platform. He looked down at the robots. He looked at the holographic displays floating above the workstations, showing schematics of engines that defied conventional physics. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice cracking. This is impossible. You make toys, Al. You make wooden horses. I make machines." "Liam," I corrected him, my voice echoing slightly in the vast space. "I make the things that make the world work. The toys are just to keep my hands busy while the algorithms run." Jasmine walked up beside him. She looked at the screens. She saw the logos flashing in the corner of the monitors, the recognizable T of a major electric car company, the official seal of a federal space agency. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling, "are those real? Are you working for them?" I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. The reality was right in front of her. The father she had dismissed as a relic was actually the architect of the future. Ms. Sato stepped forward. She looked at the facility with a professional nod, though I knew she had seen it before. "As you can see, Mr. Black," she said, addressing Liam, "the property has significant industrial value. The infrastructure alone is worth millions. My client is prepared to honor the $5 million offer for the real estate, but we will require a separate negotiation for the equipment. Or, Mr. Mercer can liquidate it separately." Liam didn't hear her. Or if he did, the words meant nothing to him. He was no longer thinking about $5 million. He was no longer thinking about paying off Vinny the shark. He was looking at a prototype sitting on a pedestal near the servers. It was a drone unit the size of a hummingbird designed for search and rescue in collapsed buildings. It was solid platinum and carbon fiber. He turned to look at me. The fear in his eyes was gone. It had been replaced by a hunger so raw and so ugly it made him look demonic. $5 million, he muttered. $5 million. He laughed. It was a dry hacking sound. "You wanted to sell this for $5 million, you stupid old man. This room alone is worth $1 billion. He walked down the stairs from the platform to the main floor. He approached the robots. He reached out as if to touch one of the moving arms. "Don't," I warned him sharp and loud. "The sensors will interpret your hand as an obstruction. It will break your arm before you can blink." Liam snatched his hand back. He looked at the robots with new respect and new greed. He turned around slowly, spinning in a circle, taking it all in. The servers, the prototypes, the raw materials stacked in secure crates. He looked at me standing on the platform above him. "You had this the whole time," he shouted. "While we were struggling, while I was begging for loans, while Jasmine was crying about bills, you were sitting on this." "I didn't owe you a penny, Liam," I said calmly. I built this with my mind. You built your debt with your greed. Liam's face twisted. He wasn't hearing me. He was rewriting history in his head. He was convincing himself that he was the victim, that I had held out on him, that this wealth belonged to the family and therefore belonged to him. I walked down the stairs, followed by Miss Sato and Jasmine. We stood on the main floor facing him. The deal is on the table, Liam, I said. Miss Sato is ready to write the check. 5 million. You pay your shark. You leave Chicago. You never come back. Liam looked at Miss Sato. Then he looked at the exit, the glass elevator that was the only way out. No, he said softly. Excuse me, Miss Sato asked. No, Liam repeated louder. No deal. We are not selling. Jasmine stepped forward. Liam, what are you saying? 5 million saves us. We can go. We can start over. Start over, Liam screamed, spinning on her. With 5 million. Are you an idiot? Look around you, Jasmine. This is a kingdom. Why would I take a payout when I can own the factory? He looked at me, his eyes burning with a manic light. I am not selling the house, Al, he said. And I am not leaving. I am taking over. He walked toward the main control desk. He ran his hand along the smooth surface. I am the man of the house now, he declared. You are too old to run this. You are obviously incompetent. Hiding this down here, not monetizing it. It is criminal mismanagement. I am going to bring in real investors. I am going to scale this up. We are going to be billionaires, Al, not millionaires. Billionaires. He was delusional. He didn't know the first thing about engineering. He couldn't code Hello World in Python, let alone manage a neural network. But greed had blinded him to his own incompetence. You can't take it, Liam, I said, my voice low. It is protected. Biometrics, passwords, encryption keys that change every hour. Without me, this is just a room full of statues. Liam smiled. It was a terrifying smile. Then you are going to give me the keys, Al. You are going to teach me. You are going to sit in that chair and you are going to transfer everything to me. The patents, the accounts, the access codes, everything. And if I refuse, I asked. Liam reached into the back of his waistband. He pulled out a gun. It wasn't a sleek modern weapon like the technology around us. It was a heavy black pistol he must have bought on the street. It looked dirty and mean in his manicured hand. Jasmine screamed and covered her mouth. Miss Sato stiffened but held her ground. Liam pointed the gun directly at my chest. His hand was shaking, but at this range it didn't matter. If you refuse, Liam said, his voice trembling with adrenaline, I will kill you. Right here. And then I will kill the lawyer. And I will figure out the codes myself. I have your computer. I have your phone. I will hire hackers. I will do whatever it takes. But I am not walking out of here with just $5 million. Liam, Jasmine cried, tears streaming down her face. Put it down. You are going crazy. This is my dad. Shut up, Liam roared without looking at her. He is not your dad. He is a miser. He watched us drown while he was building toy robots. He deserves this. He took a step closer to me. The barrel of the gun looked like a black tunnel. Sign the transfer, Al, he commanded. Ms. Sato has the papers in her briefcase. I saw them, the deed transfer. But we are going to change the terms. It is a gift now, a gift to your beloved son-in-law. He waved the gun toward Ms. Sato. Give him the papers, he barked, and a pen. Now. Ms. Sato looked at me. I gave her a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. She opened her briefcase slowly. Her hands were steady. She pulled out the document we had prepared for the sale. She placed it on the nearest workbench. Sign it, Al, Liam shouted. Sign it all over to me, the house, the shop. The lab. Do it or I swear to God I will paint these white walls with your brains. I looked at the gun. I looked at his finger on the trigger. He was squeezing it tight. He was ready to fire. I looked at Jasmine. She was sobbing, huddled on the floor. She wasn't trying to stop him. She wasn't jumping in front of the gun. She was just watching, waiting to see who won. I looked back at Liam. You think you are in control, I said softly. You think a gun makes you a king. It makes me the boss, Liam spat. Now right. I took a step forward, not toward the papers, toward him. Liam flinched. Stay back, he warned. I took another step. You are making a mistake, son, I said. I am not your son, he screamed. He raised the gun higher, aiming for my head. I stopped. I stood tall. I let the persona of the weak old man fall away completely. My spine straightened, my shoulders squared. I looked him in the eye with the intensity of a laser cutter. "Pull the trigger," then I said. "If you think you can run this place without me, if you think you are smart enough, pull it." Liam hesitated. His eyes darted from me to the machines. He was doing the calculation. Could he hack it? Could he steal it without me? Greed won. He realized he needed me alive, at least for now, but he needed to hurt me. He needed to show dominance. He lowered the aim slightly back to my chest. "I will shoot your leg," he said. "I will shatter your knee. Then you will sign." He tensed his hand. He took a breath. I watched his finger. I saw the muscles contract. This was it, the moment of truth. I didn't flinch. I didn't close my eyes. I watched the hammer of the gun pull back. And I waited for the sound that would end his life, not mine. The silence in the lab was broken only by the hum of the servers and the ragged breathing of my daughter. Jasmine had collapsed to her knees, her hands clasped in a pathetic gesture of prayer. She looked at the gun in her husband's hand and then at me, and I saw the final shattering of her world. The man she had married, the man she had betrayed her father for, was standing there ready to commit murder for a patent he did not understand. "Liam, please stop." Jasmine sobbed, her voice echoing off the white walls. "You cannot do this. He is my father. We can just leave. We can take the 5 million and go. Please, Liam, look at me. This is insane." Liam did not look at her. He kept his eyes locked on me, the gun trembling slightly in his grip. He swatted the air with his free hand, a gesture of pure dismissal, as if she were a fly buzzing around his head. "Shut up, Jasmine." He snapped, his voice dripping with a venom I had never heard before. "Stop whining. You are embarrassing yourself." "But Liam," she cried, crawling forward, reaching for his leg. "You said we were partners. You said you loved me. You said we would just sell the house." Liam laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound that stripped away the last remnants of his charm. "Partners," he sneered, looking down at her with a disgust that made my stomach turn. "You thought we were partners. Look at you. You are nothing but a diversity hire in your own marriage. I married you because I thought the old man had gold stashed away, and I needed someone to sign the checks. I endured your cooking, your complaining, and your family for 3 years. I earned this." He looked back at me, his eyes narrowing. "I earned this," he repeated, shouting now. "I am the one with the vision. I am the one who knows how to sell this. You people, you sit on resources you do not know how to use. You hoard them in basements like squirrels. It takes a man like me, a man of intellect, a man of superior breeding, to actually do something with it." There it was. The mask was gone completely. It was not just greed, it was the deep-seated rot of racism that he had hidden behind smiles and handshakes for years. He did not just want my money. He felt entitled to it. He believed that by virtue of his skin and his arrogance, he was naturally superior to the black mechanic who built the machines he coveted. "You think you built this?" he spat, waving the gun at the robotic arms. "No, you stole it, or you copied it. There is no way a man like you designed this architecture. It is too complex. It is too sophisticated. You are a fraud, Al. And I'm going to take this technology and put it in the hands of people who actually deserve it. People like me." I watched him rant. I watched the veins bulge in his neck. I watched Jasmine shrink away from him, her face pale with the realization that she had married a monster who despised her very existence. I felt a strange calm settle over me. The fear was gone. The anger was gone. There was only the cold calculation of physics and engineering. I took a step forward. "Stay back," Liam screamed, raising the gun higher. "I will blow your head off, old man. I mean it." I did not stop. I walked with a steady rhythm, my cane forgotten on the floor behind me. I looked at the gun. It was a Glock 19, standard issue, polymeric frame, steel slide, a reliable weapon in the hands of a professional. In the hands of a desperate amateur, it was a wild card. "You are holding it wrong, son," I said, my voice level and conversational. Liam blinked, confused by my lack of fear. "What are you talking about?" "Your grip," I explained, taking another step. "It is too loose, and your stance is off. If you pull that trigger, the recoil is going to snap your wrist back. You will miss at this range. You will probably hit the server rack behind me. And if you damage that server, the fail-safes engage, and this room locks down for 48 hours. You will starve before the police get through the blast doors." Liam hesitated. He glanced at the gun, then at the servers. Doubt flickered in his eyes. "You are lying," he stammered. "You are trying to trick me." "I am trying to teach you," I said, stopping 5 feet away from him. "I am trying to teach you that you do not touch tools you do not understand." I looked him in the eye. I saw the fear behind the hate. He was a coward who had bought a gun to feel like a man. "Do it then," I challenged him. "If you are superior, if you are smarter, if you deserve this kingdom, take it. Pull the trigger." Liam's face contorted. He gritted his teeth. He squeezed his eyes shut for a second, summoning every ounce of his hatred. "Go to hell, Al," he screamed. He pulled the trigger. The sound that followed was not the deafening boom of a gunshot. It was not the explosion of gunpowder and the tear of metal. It was a sharp plastic snap. Crack. Then silence. Liam opened his eyes. He looked at the gun. Smoke did not curl from the barrel. There was no hole in my chest. He squeezed the trigger again. Click. Snap. Nothing happened. The slide did not move. The hammer did not fall. He looked at the weapon in horror. He shook it. He pulled the slide back, but it felt wrong, light, and hollow. It came off in his hand. "What the hell?" he whispered. I smiled. It was a cold smile. "That is the problem with 3D printing," I said. "The polymers are strong, but the internal springs for the firing mechanism are tricky to replicate with plastic. They tend to shear under stress." Liam looked at the pieces of the gun in his hands. He looked at me. "You switched it," he gasped. I nodded. "Yesterday morning, when you were sleeping off your hangover on my couch, I saw the gun in your bag. I took the real one. I melted it down in the furnace, and I replaced it with a replica from my toy line. A prototype I made for a movie prop. It looks real. It weighs the same, but inside it is just plastic and air." I took another step toward him. "You tried to kill me with a toy, Liam," I said. "How poetic." Liam dropped the broken plastic pieces. They clattered harmlessly on the floor. He looked at his empty hands. He looked at the high-tech fortress around him. He realized in that moment that he was not the predator. He was not the superior intellect. He was a child who had wandered into a workshop full of power tools he could not control. The arrogance drained out of him, leaving only the naked terror of a man who owes $500,000 and has just lost his only bargaining chip. He looked at me, and for the first time he saw the man I really was. Not Al the shopkeeper. Al the engineer. Al the architect. Al the man who was 10 steps ahead of him before the game even started. You crazy old man," he stammered, backing away until he hit the control desk. "I am not crazy," I said, closing the distance. "I am just thorough." I stopped right in front of him. I could smell his fear. It smelled like justice. "Now," I said, my voice low and hard, "get out of my chair." Liam didn't move. He couldn't. He was paralyzed by the total collapse of his reality. And that was when he made his final mistake. He looked at the heavy brass seal on the desk, the one I used to stamp official blueprints. He reached for it. His hand closed around the heavy metal object. He was going to try to bludgeon me. He had no gun, no leverage, and no plan. All he had was violence. I watched his muscles tense. I watched his eyes shift, target to my temple. I didn't flinch. I had been waiting for this. The plastic gun was a trick. The real lesson was about to begin, and it would be physical. Liam dropped the heavy brass seal. It clattered to the floor, denting the pristine white tile of my laboratory. He realized that a blunt object was not enough to kill a man who had just humiliated him. He reached into his boot. His movements were frantic and clumsy, fueled by the adrenaline of a cornered animal. He pulled out a serrated hunting knife. It was a vicious thing with a 6-inch blade, the kind of weapon a coward buys to feel powerful in dark alleys. The steel glinted under the harsh blue LED lights, a jagged strip of metal meant to tear flesh. "I am going to cut your heart out, Al," he screamed. His voice cracked. He was crying tears of pure, impotent rage. He lunged at me. In his mind, he probably saw himself as a warrior. He probably thought his youth and his gym membership gave him the advantage over a 68-year-old man with a cane. He did not understand that muscles built for vanity are useless against muscles built for survival. He did not understand that while he was doing bench presses in an air-conditioned club, I was lifting engine blocks and bending steel rebar with my bare hands. He came at me with the knife raised high, a classic amateur mistake. He left his entire midsection open. He committed his weight too early. I did not step back. I stepped in. I dropped my cane. It hit the floor with a hollow wooden sound. I bent my knees, lowering my center of gravity. I wasn't Al the shopkeeper anymore. I wasn't the victim. I was the earth. I was the stone. Liam's arm descended. I caught his wrist. My hand closed around his forearm like a hydraulic clamp. I felt his skin damp with sweat. I felt the fragile radius bone beneath the expensive fabric of his sleeve. I looked into his eyes. They went wide with shock. He tried to pull back, but he couldn't move. I had him. "You are soft, son," I whispered. I didn't just block him. I used his own momentum against him. I rotated my hips. I pulled his arm down and twisted it outward. It is a simple judo technique called kote gaeshi, or the wrist turnaround. It relies on leverage, not brute strength, but I had plenty of strength to spare. I applied pressure. Liam screamed. It was a high-pitched sound that echoed off the server racks. "Drop it," I commanded. He didn't drop it. He tried to slash at me with his free hand, so I finished the move. I stepped back and snapped my hips, pulling his arm past the point of structural integrity. There was a sound like a dry branch snapping in a winter forest, a loud, sickening crack that vibrated up my own arm. Liam's wrist broke. The bone gave way under the torque. The knife fell from his nerveless fingers, bouncing harmlessly away across the floor. Liam's legs buckled. He collapsed to his knees, his left hand clutching his broken right wrist. He curled into a ball on the floor of my billion-dollar laboratory, whimpering like a child who had scraped his knee. I stood over him. I wasn't breathing hard. My heart rate hadn't even spiked. I looked down at him with zero pity. This was the man who called me weak. This was the man who thought his white skin and his college degree made him superior to the black mechanic. "You spent your life buying things, Liam," I said, my voice echoing in the silent room. "You bought clothes. You bought cars. You bought a gun. You thought you could buy power. But you cannot buy strength. Strength is earned in the dark when nobody is watching, and you have never been in the dark." I kicked the knife away, sending it skittering under a workbench. I looked at my hands. They were calloused, scarred. They were the hands of a creator and a protector, and today they were the hands of judgment. Liam was sobbing on the floor, rocking back and forth. My hand, he moaned. "You broke my hand. You are going to jail." I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "I am not going to jail, Liam," I said. "You broke into a secure government-contracted facility. You brought explosives. You brought a weapon. You attempted to murder the proprietor. In the eyes of the law, I just neutralized a terrorist." I turned away from him. He was no longer a threat. He was just broken garbage waiting to be taken out. I looked for Jasmine. I expected to see her rushing to her husband's side. I expected her to be kneeling beside him, tearing strips from her dress to bind his wrist. I expected her to scream at me to call an ambulance. But Jasmine wasn't looking at Liam. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the desk. Specifically, she was looking at the heavy brass seal that Liam had dropped. The seal was the official stamp for the Mercer Trust. It was the physical object required to notarize any transfer of intellectual property. In her twisted, desperate mind, she thought that if she possessed the seal, she possessed the kingdom. Jasmine moved. She didn't run to help the man she married. She didn't run to hug the father who had just saved his own life. She scrambled on her hands and knees, crawling past Liam's writhing body. Her designer dress trailed in the dust. Her eyes were fixed on that piece of brass with a hunger that was more terrifying than Liam's rage. She reached the desk. She clawed her way up, snatching the seal. She clutched it to her chest, her eyes wild and darting around the room. "I have it," she whispered. "I have the seal. You have to sign it now, Dad. You have to, or I will stamp it myself. I will forge it." I watched her, and I felt the final thread of connection sever. This was not my daughter. This was a creature consumed by avarice. Her husband was lying on the floor with a broken bone, screaming in agony, and she was worried about a corporate stamp. "Jasmine," I said, my voice filled with a profound exhaustion. "Put it down." "No," she screamed, backing away until she hit the wall. "It is mine. This is my inheritance. You owe me this. Look at what you did to Liam. You are a monster. You hurt him. But you won't hurt me. I am your daughter. You have to give me the company." She held the seal up like a talisman, like a holy relic that could ward off poverty. You don't even know what that is, I said, walking slowly toward her. It is a piece of metal, Jasmine. It doesn't give you power. It doesn't give you knowledge. You can stamp every piece of paper in this room and you still won't know how to build a circuit board. You won't know how to run this place. I don't care, she shrieked. I will sell it. Bill, I will sell it all, port by port, chip by chip. I will burn it down if I have to, but I am getting paid. She looked at Liam, who was still moaning on the floor. Get up, Liam, she yelled at him. Get up and help me. We have the seal. We can still win. Liam looked up at her, his face gray with pain. You stupid cow, he rasped. It is over. Can't you see that? He broke me. Jasmine looked at him with pure disgust. You are weak, she spat. You are useless. I have to do everything myself. She turned back to me, clutching the seal so hard her knuckles were white. Let us go, Dad, she said. Open the elevator. Let us leave with the seal. And we won't tell anyone about this place. I stopped walking. I looked at her. I looked at the greed that had eaten her soul. No, I said. What do you mean, no? She asked, her voice trembling. I mean the game is over, I said. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a small black remote control. It had a single red button protected by a plastic cover. Jasmine's eyes widened. What is that? This is the end of the lesson, I said. I flipped the plastic cover open. I pressed the button. Instantly, the lighting in the lab changed. The cool blue LEDs turned a harsh, strobing red. A siren began to wail, a deafening rhythmic whoop, whoop, whoop that filled the cavernous space. It was the sound of a facility going into maximum security lockdown. Jasmine dropped the seal. She covered her ears, screaming. Liam curled tighter into a ball, trying to block out the noise. I didn't cover my ears. I stood tall in the flashing red light, watching them crumble. The large main screen on the wall behind the control desk flickered to life. It had been displaying schematics of a drone engine. Now it switched to a live video feed from the external security cameras. The image was grainy but clear. It showed the street outside my toy shop. It was no longer a quiet Chicago street. It was a war zone. 4 black SUVs had screeched to a halt in front of the building, blocking the road. Blue and red lights flashed from their grills. Men in tactical gear were pouring out of the vehicles, carrying assault rifles and battering rams. They wore jackets with bold yellow letters on the back. FBI. Behind them were 2 Chicago police cruisers. Jasmine stared at the screen, her mouth hanging open. What did you do? She whispered the siren, nearly drowning out her voice. Who are they? I looked at the screen. I saw Tasha standing by the lead vehicle, pointing at the front door. She had made the call. She had sent the evidence packet I had compiled. The evidence of Liam's wire fraud. The evidence of his money laundering for Vinny the Shark. The evidence of the explosives. They are not here for a domestic dispute, Jasmine, I said, shouting over the alarm. They are not here because I called 911. I pointed at the screen where the tactical team was currently smashing through the front door of the shop. They are here because your husband isn't just a bad son-in-law, he is a criminal. And thanks to the files I pulled from his phone last night, he is now a federal suspect. Liam looked up from the floor. He saw the FBI agents on the screen. He saw his life ending. No, he moaned. No, no, no. They are coming down, I said. And they are going to find a man with a broken wrist, a woman holding stolen property, and an old man defending his life's work. I looked at Jasmine. You wanted the police involved, I said. You wanted the authorities to know I was incompetent. Well, they are here. Tell them whatever you want. The elevator chimed. The override codes had been entered from the outside. The doors were about to open. I turned to face the glass doors, adjusting my shirt cuffs. I waited for the cavalry. Jasmine sank to the floor next to Liam. She looked at the brass seal lying in the dust. It was worthless, just a paperweight. The elevator doors slid open. Drop your weapons, a voice shouted. Federal agents. I raised my hands slowly, palms open. I am the owner, I said calmly. The intruders are on the floor. And as the agents swarmed into the room, guns drawn, I looked at my daughter one last time. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the handcuffs hanging from the agent's belt. She finally understood. The basement wasn't a gold mine. It was a trap, and she had walked right into it. The elevator doors were just the beginning. As the federal agents poured out onto the main floor, guns trained on Liam, the entire laboratory seemed to vibrate with a new frequency of violence. Liam was curled on the floor, clutching his broken wrist, his face pressed against the cold white tiles. Jasmine was frozen, her hands in the air, her eyes wide with the shock of a reality she could not comprehend. But the symphony of justice was not finished. Above us, high in the vaulted ceiling of the underground chamber, there was a sudden deafening crash. The reinforced glass of the ventilation atrium, which brought filtered sunlight down from the surface garden, exploded inward. Shards of glass rained down like diamonds glittering in the harsh red emergency lighting. Through the broken aperture, black ropes dropped. Men in tactical gear descended from the sky, rappelling down the 50-foot drop with the precision of spiders. They hit the floor in a circle surrounding us. The sound of their boots hitting the ground was heavy and final. This was not a simple arrest. This was a raid. Leading the team on the ground was a figure I knew better than my own reflection. Tasha walked out of the elevator behind the initial wave of agents. She was not wearing her mechanic's jumpsuit today. She was wearing a Kevlar vest over a crisp button-down shirt. Her hair was pulled back, her face was fierce. She walked straight to me, ignoring the chaos, ignoring the weapons, ignoring the screaming man on the floor. She looked at me. She looked at my bruised face. She looked at my hands, which were still balled into fists. "Are you hurt, Mr. Mercer?" she asked, her voice cutting through the noise of the siren. "I am fine, Tasha," I said. "Just a few scratches." She nodded once. Then she turned to the lead agent, a tall man with a scar on his chin. "Secure the servers," she ordered. "The evidence is on the primary drive. Do not let anyone touch the terminals." The agent nodded. "Copy that." Liam lifted his head from the floor. He saw Tasha. He recognized her as the girl who sometimes swept the floors in my shop, the girl he had ignored for 3 years, the girl he had once called a street rat. "You," he wheezed, "you did this. You are the assistant." Tasha looked down at him. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She looked at him with the clinical detachment of a scientist examining a bacteria sample. "I am the chief security officer for Mercer Industries, Liam," she said, "and you are trespassing in a federal facility." The agents hauled Liam to his feet. He screamed in pain as they wrenched his arms behind his back, ignoring his broken wrist to slap the handcuffs on. He kicked and thrashed, spitting blood and curses. "This is a mistake," he yelled. "I am the victim here." He attacked me. He broke my arm. Arrest him. Arrest the old man. He looked around wildly, searching for an ally. His eyes landed on Ms. Sato, who was standing calmly by the control desk, brushing a speck of dust from her white suit. "Tell them," he begged her. "Tell them, Ms. Sato. You saw it. You saw him attack me. You are a witness. You are a lawyer. Help me." Ms. Sato looked at him. She looked at the handcuffs. She looked at the agents who were now securing the perimeter. She reached into her jacket pocket. Liam stopped struggling for a second, hope flickering in his eyes. He thought she was reaching for a business card. He thought she was going to represent him. Miss Sato pulled out a leather wallet. She flipped it open. A gold badge gleamed under the red lights. "I am not a lawyer, Mr. Black," she said, her voice cool and authoritative. Liam blinked. The hope died instantly, replaced by a confusion so deep it looked like physical pain. What he whispered. "I am Special Agent Sato," she continued, closing the badge with a snap. "FBI Financial Crimes Division. I have been investigating the money laundering operations of Vincent Moretti, also known as Vinny the Shark, for 2 years. Liam's knees buckled. The agents had to hold him up. "Vinny," he stammered, "we have been tracking your payments to him for 6 months. Ms. Sato explained, walking closer to him until she was inches from his face. "We knew you were washing money through your shell companies. We knew you were desperate. But we needed to catch you in the act of a felony to make the charges stick immediately. We needed you to try to liquidate a major asset illegally." She gestured to the room around us. Attempting to steal and sell classified technology designed for the Department of Defense is a very serious felony, Liam. It is treason adjacent. Liam looked at me. He looked at Tasha. He looked at Ms. Sato. The realization crashed down on him. The entire day. The visit. The offer of $5 million. It was all a sting operation. "You set me up," he screamed, his voice cracking. "You entrapped me." "I did not entrap you, son," I said, stepping forward. "I gave you a choice. I offered you $5 million to walk away. You could have taken the money. You could have paid your debts. You could have left, but you didn't. You got greedy. You wanted the kingdom." I tapped my temple. "You forgot the first rule of engineering, Liam. Pressure reveals flaws. I just applied the pressure. You provided the flaw." Ms. Sato nodded to the agents. "Get him out of here," she said. "Read him his rights. Not that it will help. Liam began to sob. It was an ugly sound. The sound of a man who knows his life is over. "Wait, wait!" he cried as they dragged him toward the elevator. "I have info on Vinny. I can deal. I can make a deal." "We already have Vinny," Miss Sato said, turning her back on him. "We raided his operation an hour ago thanks to the data Tasha decrypted from your phone last night. You were the weak link, Liam. You led us right to him." Liam's screams faded as the elevator doors closed, sealing him inside with the agents who would take him to a cell he would likely never leave. The room quieted down. The red light stopped strobing and switched back to the calm, cool blue. The siren cut off. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the clean, filtered air. It was over. The threat was gone. Then I heard a sound. A soft, pathetic whimpering coming from the floor near the desk. I had almost forgotten about Jasmine. She was still on her knees, clutching the worthless brass seal to her chest. 2 agents were standing over her, waiting for the order. She looked up at me. Her mascara was running down her face in black rivulets. Her dress was ruined. She looked small. She looked like the little girl who used to skin her knees in the park. But she wasn't that little girl anymore. An agent stepped forward, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. He reached for her arms. Jasmine flinched. She looked at the agent, then she looked at me. Her eyes were wide with terror. "Daddy," she cried. "Daddy, help me. Please, don't let them take me." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had stood by while her husband starved me. The woman who had planned to put me in a home. The woman who had screamed that she wanted my money more than my life. "I didn't do anything," she sobbed, reaching a hand out toward me. "It was all Liam. He forced me. I was scared. I am your daughter. You have to save me." I felt a pang in my chest. It was the echo of an old love, the ghost of fatherhood. It would have been so easy to speak to Miss Sato, to say she was a victim, to get her a lawyer, to pay her bail, to bring her back home and try to fix her. But then I remembered the audio recording. I remembered her voice in the kitchen saying I was selfish for wanting to live my own life. I remembered her watching Liam hold a gun to my head and only worrying about the seal. I looked at her hand reaching for me. I did not take it. I turned my back on her. I walked toward the control desk where Tasha was already typing commands to secure the facility. Daddy, Jasmine screamed, the desperation rising in her voice. "Daddy, look at me. I am Jasmine. I am your baby girl." I stopped. I didn't turn around. I spoke to the air in front of me. "My daughter died a long time ago," I said, my voice steady and cold. "She died the day she chose a check over her father." I nodded to the agent. "Take her." "No." Jasmine shrieked as the agent pulled her arms back and clicked the cuffs onto her wrists. "No, please. I am sorry. I am so sorry." They hauled her to her feet. She struggled, kicking and crying, calling my name over and over. "Al Mercer," she yelled. "Dad, please." I stood by the desk looking at the screens. I watched the security feed as they dragged her into the elevator. I watched the doors close on her weeping face. I stood there for a long time staring at the metal doors. "Mr. Mercer," Tasha said softly from beside me. "Are you okay?" I looked at her. I saw the tears in her eyes. She knew what this cost me. "I am fine, Tasha," I said. I adjusted my cuffs. I smoothed the front of my flannel shirt. "I am fine," I repeated. "I just need to get back to work." I sat down at the desk. I pulled up the schematics for the new Mars rover guidance system. The basement was quiet again. The parasites were gone. The gold diggers were gone. It was just me and the machines. And for the first time in a long time, the air tasted clean. The sign above the door no longer reads Mercer's handcrafted toys. The peeling paint and the faded letters are gone, replaced by a sleek panel of brushed steel and glass that catches the morning Chicago sun. It reads, "The Coretta Mercer Academy of Robotics and Engineering." I stand on the sidewalk across the street leaning on my cane, not because I need it, but because old habits die hard. It has been 6 months since the raid, since the sirens and the shattered glass and the end of my life as a ghost. The building is alive. It is no longer a tomb of dusty memories. Through the large front windows I can see them. 20 children, boys and girls from the neighborhood wearing blue lab coats. They are not looking at phones. They are not loitering on corners. They are huddled around workstations, their eyes wide with the thrill of creation. They are programming robotic arms. They are soldering circuit boards. They are learning the language of the future. I watch a young boy, maybe 12 years old, hold up a drone he just assembled. It hovers unsteadily for a moment, then stabilizes its tiny motors, humming a perfect pitch. The boy's face lights up with a joy so pure it makes my chest ache. I see myself in him. I see the boy who used to take apart radios in the basement because he wanted to know how the voices got inside. This is what I should have done 20 years ago. I spent so much time hiding my light underground, afraid that the world would steal it again. I hoarded my genius like a miser hoards coins. But Tasha was right. Technology is not meant to be buried. It is meant to be shared. It is meant to lift people up. The academy is free. It is funded by the sale of 2 of my older patents to a Japanese conglomerate. The money I got was enough to run this place for a century. I don't need it. I have the contracts. I have the royalties. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But the real wealth is in that room. It is in the minds of those children who now know that a black kid from the South Side can build a spaceship if he wants to. I cross the street. The neighborhood has changed too. The drug dealers who used to hang out on the corner are gone, chased away not by police, but by the private security detail that now patrols the block. The graffiti has been painted over. There is a sense of pride here now, a feeling that this place matters. I walk up the steps. The door opens automatically, recognizing my biometric signature. Inside, the air smells of solder and potential. Tasha is at the front desk talking to a parent. She sees me and smiles. It is a genuine smile, not the guarded look of a conspirator. "Good morning, Mr. Mercer," she says. "The new 3D printers arrived. The kids are going crazy." I nod. Let them build, Tasha. Let them break things. That is how they learn. I walk through the main hall, heading for the glass elevator. I don't go down there to hide anymore. I go down there to work, to teach, to lead. But before I descend, I take a moment to look at the wall near the entrance. There is a plaque there dedicated to Coretta. But there is no picture of Jasmine. There never will be. My daughter is not dead, but she is gone. The last time I saw her was through a thick pane of plexiglass in the visitation room of the Federal Detention Center. She looked older. Her hair was dull, her skin sallow. The fire of greed had burned out, leaving only ash. Liam did not get a plea deal. The sheer volume of evidence I provided, combined with Ms. Sato's testimony, buried him. The federal prosecutor called him a predator of the highest order. The judge was not lenient. 20 years in a maximum security federal prison for domestic terrorism, attempted murder, wire fraud, and conspiracy. He will be an old man when he gets out. He will be older than I am now. And he will have nothing. Jasmine fared slightly better, but not much. She was convicted as an accessory to kidnapping and attempted extortion. 5 years. Her lawyer tried to argue that she was manipulated by Liam, that she was a victim of coercive control, but the audio recordings didn't lie. The jury heard her voice. They heard her wish for my death. They heard her choose the seal over her father. She lost everything else too. The state took custody of her future. If she ever gets out, she will have a felony record. She will never work in a high-rise. She will never wear designer clothes. She works in the prison kitchen now, scrubbing pots for 12 cents an hour. When I visited her, she cried. She begged. She asked why I didn't hire a better lawyer for her, why I didn't use my millions to buy her freedom. I picked up the phone on my side of the glass. I looked at her. "I gave you freedom, Jasmine," I told her. "I gave you a debt-free life. I gave you an education. You used your freedom to try to enslave me." "But I am your daughter," she sobbed. "No," I said, hanging up the phone. "You were my daughter. Now you are just inmate number 8940. I haven't gone back. I won't go back. Some rot you have to cut out completely or it kills the whole tree." I step into the elevator. It descends smoothly into the lab. It is busy down here too. I have hired 5 engineers, all from the neighborhood, all brilliant, all overlooked by the big firms. They are working on the next generation of the guidance system. I walk to my desk. It is the same desk where Liam tried to kill me, but the brass seal is gone. I melted it down. I don't need seals. I need results. Tasha comes down a few minutes later, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She hands me one. It is black, strong, and safe. "You look good, Al," she says, sitting on the edge of the desk. I look down at myself. I am not wearing the flannel shirt and the old trousers. I am wearing a bespoke navy suit made of Italian wool. My shoes are polished leather. I wear a watch that actually works. I don't use the cane anymore. I don't need people to think I am weak. I want them to know I am strong. "I feel good, Tasha," I say. She sips her coffee, looking at the bustling lab. "Liam sent a letter," she says quietly, "from prison. It came to the office this morning. I don't look up from my blueprints. Burn it, I say. You don't want to read it, she asks. He claims he has found God. I laugh, a short, sharp sound. He didn't find God, Tasha. He found a cage, and he is saying whatever he thinks will get the key. Tasha nods. She takes a lighter from her pocket and walks over to the waste bin. I hear the sound of paper catching fire. I watch the smoke rise. It is the last vestige of the parasites. They are gone. They are memories fading into the ventilation system. I turn my chair to look at Tasha. She is the daughter I should have had. She is loyal not because of blood, but because of shared values. She stood by me when I was a crazy old man with a conspiracy theory. She fought for me. You know, Tasha, I say, leaning back in my chair, for 20 years I came down here every night. I locked that door. I turned on these lights. And I built things that the world said I couldn't build. I pause, looking at the robotic arms dancing in the center of the room. I thought I was protecting this place. I continue. I thought I was protecting the legacy, but I was just hiding. I was afraid. Afraid of what Tasha asks. Afraid that they were right, I say. Afraid that if I showed my face, if I showed my work, they would take it away again. Like Henderson did in '84. Like Liam tried to do. But they didn't, Tasha says firmly. You won? Yes, I say. I won, but not because I hid. I won because I finally opened the door. I stand up. I walk over to the main server bank. The lights blink in a rhythmic, comforting pattern. I hid the whole world in the basement to protect my family. I say, my voice echoing in the cathedral of technology. But in the end, I realize the world needs to see the light, and true family are the people who stand by you when darkness falls. I put my hand on Tasha's shoulder. Come on, I say. We have work to do. The Mars rover isn't going to guide itself. We get back to work. The hum of the machines rises. Above us, the children are learning to fly. Below us, the engines of the future are turning. And for the first time in my life, I am not watching the door. I am watching the horizon. For 40 years, I believed that hiding my true self was the only way to keep my family safe from the corruption of the world. I thought silence was a shield, but I learned the hard way that darkness only allows rot to grow. Liam and Jasmine saw a dusty shop and an old man. They never bothered to look for the soul underneath. True wealth isn't found in a bank account or a basement vault. It is found in the people who stand by you when the walls come crashing down. I lost the child I raised, but I found the legacy I was meant to leave. Never underestimate the quiet ones. We are usually the ones building the future while everyone else is arguing over the past. If you enjoyed seeing justice served, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of retribution. Let me know in the comments, would you have given Jasmine a second chance? Thanks for watching.